Good afternoon, everybody. Matt Barnes, like the captain said, Southern Marin, about 28, on my 29th year in the fire service, been in a couple different organizations, and then have been at BC the last 16 years with Southern Marin. It's really, today isn't really about me, it's about you guys. It's about what we do on a daily basis when we come to work. And I'll let these guys all come in. Hello. All right.
Age 21 doesn't have lunch.
A couple disclaimers. So one, it's not Matt Barnes's information. A lot of the stuff we're going to talk about today is based off of the firefighter rescue survey. If you haven't been to that website, all right, come on in. I really encourage you to do so. There's so much information in regards to search and why we try to advocate how to search, when to search, and why we're searching. We're going to watch a number of videos, look at a couple case studies, none of which are meant to demean, demoralize, point fingers, armchair quarterback, any of that stuff. It's for us just to learn and take some opportunities to talk about what we see on the screen and how we might apply it on a daily basis. And then lastly, I kind of subscribe to the 3 Ps of not my material, right? So pleading for help, plagiarizing as much as you can, and then promoting it as your own. So this probably isn't ground shaking information or new information. We're just trying to connect the dots or put the puzzle pieces together to make it work for us on a daily basis. The mission, metrics, and mindset, what does that mean? Really, what's our mission in the fire service? What's your mission? Protect life, right? I think we can all agree that's our #1 mission. With whatever it is we do when someone calls 911, our primary mission is to protect life. So let's look at our current metrics. How do we measure success in the fire service? Nobody got hurt. And maybe that's what success looks like to you. But what about when the company officers go in and they start writing their reports in EMFers, or the chief officers write the reports on the fire? What are the metrics that are being measured at the national level? Dollar loss, injuries, deaths. Where does it say in EMFers, people saved, people rescued, property value preserved? It doesn't, right? So maybe it's time for us to have the mindset of actually having our metrics meet our mission. And that's what all today is about, is really trying to, and I think the firefighter rescue survey does a really, really good job of starting to implore the opportunity to look at what we're actually doing on a daily basis to really go back to our mission of saving life, right? And I'm going to dive a ton into data. We'll talk about the why. Tyler's going to talk a lot about how we're incorporating, or you're incorporating some of the information into your new search program, which is awesome. So that's kind of what today is going to be like. When we watch the videos, and I'm going to start off with the video. The first video, there's not a lot of video, it's more audio. So just start to think about what are the high points of what you hear. What are the things that resonate in your mind when you listen to the audio? And then when we see videos, same thing. What resonates with you, and what are the themes that jump out to you when you're watching and listening?
911, what is the address of your emergency?
Pardon?
911, what is the address of your emergency? Okay, in what city? Okay. All right, and what is the phone number you're calling from? Okay, tell me exactly what happened.
I think my house is on fire. and I'm here alone, and I'm on a walker.
Okay. All right, I have help on the way. I just have a couple of questions, okay?
Okay.
All right, just to help the the firefighters, excuse me. Okay, what's your name, ma'am? Okay, and can you spell your first
I
name?
lose my.
Okay.
Hurry up!
Okay,
I'm full of smoke.
these questions are not going to delay paramedics in any way. Okay, what type of building is involved?
It's a log house with a tin roof, but it's coming from the roof, I think. I don't know.
Okay, I have help on the way, okay? These questions are not delaying the firefighters at all, okay?
Okay.
Okay. All right, I do have them coming. All right, I'm sending the fire department to help you now. Stay on the line, and I'll tell you exactly what to do next. Okay, how many floors or stories are there?
Well, there's just one floor. We got an attic.
Okay.
What should I do?
Okay, is anyone trapped inside the building?
Well, I'm inside the house. I don't even know if I can get out.
Okay. All right, I have them coming as quickly as possible, okay? How many?
There's just me.
Okay.
I mean, my husband's at the ball game, and I can't get him. I'll try his cell phone.
Okay, exactly where are you located? No, inside the home. Exactly where are you located inside the home?
Right now, I'm in the living room. The smoke's getting bad.
Okay, if it's safe to do so, leave the building, close the doors behind you, and remain outside. Do not try to put the fire out. Do not carry anything. Do not carry out anything that's on fire.
Couldn't, honey, if I wanted to. I'm on a walker, and I can't hardly walk. Okay.
Okay. All right, well, I do have them coming as quickly as possible, okay, so just let me know when you see them. Okay, where exactly is the fire?
On the roof, I think.
Okay. Okay, is anyone injured?
No, I'm the only one here. I'm not injured, but my eyes are full of smoke. My lungs, I can't get out the door.
Okay. Okay. All right, what is the best entrance of the building to get to you?
Well, either when you come up the driveway, the back door or the front, either one.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm on a walk. I got arthritis real bad, and I've got breast cancer.
Okay, I have them coming, okay? They're coming as quickly as possible, lights and sirens, okay?
Okay.
All right. What jumped out at everyone?
Safety is a priority if like the questions get asked after she was living leave the house.
Okay.
There's no real descriptive idea of where she was, at least until halfway up the call the living room, but where in the house is the living room, I think.
Right. Awesome. What else?
So you might have limited questions you can ask.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like she's already having trouble breathing, potentially.
Yep.
So how many questions do you have?
Right.
And how many are pertinent?
So I know the answer already because I asked it this morning. Your dispatch center, civilian or firefighters? Civilian. Okay. The dispatchers are trained based off of their algorithm of information and questions, right? Versus us firefighters, we interpret a question that we ask, and then we base further questions off of the answers of who we talk to, right? So you both keyed into it, right? The dispatcher just went down her list of questions. What information did we gather from those questions? Okay.
Maybe thinking on the setbacks, maybe if it's a lot home.
Yep. Okay.
Water supply.
What about her condition? She's in a walker. Okay. Yep, trapped. Cool. How about additional people inside the house? No, where's her husband? Yeah, cool. we're gonna listen to the dispatch audio and the first arriving companies. This was a fatality fire in Polk County, Florida. It's a pretty famous fire because there's a lot of litigation over this fire. Take all the information that you gleaned from the dispatch, the 911 call that we don't always get to listen to until after we've completed our operation and asked for the tapes and done our after action review or whatever. But take that information, that preloaded information that you received, and then let's listen to the first arriving companies and see what jumps out at you there.
Agent 6 dispatch.
Engine 6.
We're responding. You have any additional on this call? My computer's down.
Dispatch to Engine 6. At this time, we've got a caller advising there's someone trapped inside the structure. That's about the only additional we have at this time.
Agent 6 drop. Agent 39 dispatch front on tag 8.
Copy. Show you responding for residential structure fire. We're landline trying to get further at this time, but we were advised there's someone trapped inside of the structure.
Agent 6, 39, can you bring your tender?
Yeah, copy.
That one dispatch.
That one, go ahead.
I'm in route. What further do you have?
Agent 23, bat 1.
23, go ahead.
We're on a stage call for an unknown metal line. No person on the patient. You want us to break it, take fire.
That's affirmative. That one back to dispatch. What further did you have?
That one. At this time, we're landline trying to ascertain further. So far, we've been told there's someone trapped inside of the structure.
Understood.
9210.
Squad 7 Battalion 1.
That one.
Chief, do you mind if we have Rescue 7 respond for manpower? We're still down a person.
Negative. I have several engines coming.
Squad 7, copy.
Agent 23 is responding. Residential.
That one to dispatch. If we have a report of flames or smoke showing, go ahead and call for a power drop.
Copy. Also for an update, we've got the caller advising the patient that's trapped in a house is on a walker and can't move as quickly as regular.
1039.
1039.
Responding.
Copy responding. Residential structure fire. At this time, we've got a patient apparently trapped inside of the house. 1913. Rescue 6. Rescue 6. Can you put a helo on standby? Helicopter on standby. Copy at 1914.
Agent 23 dispatch.
Engine 23.
Can you send a call over to bro?
Copy at 1915.
Bat 1 to Engine 6. What's your ETA? I'll be on scene in 3 minutes. Engine 23 6. Engine 6. Go ahead. James, I think it's going to be off the roadway back in there in the pine trees. Copy that. We're trying to see right now because there's a couple of houses that are one off the road. So we're checking. It should be right before the bridge. There's a dim driveway that goes back by a pasture. And the house will be on to the right in the thick pines. Copy that. Engine 6 is right.
Engine 6.
Yes, ma'am. We're attempting to find this house at this time. There's no addresses at the road. Is there any way you can have the caller step out? 23 6. Stand by dispatch. Engine 6 dispatch.
Engine 6, fine.
Agent 6 is on scene. We have a large residential structure. Smoke showing this time. It's going to be a working fire. Go ahead and give me a power drop. I'm setting up Rock Ridge Command. This house is going to be off the roadway. We're going to have to set up a courtyard lay. Break engine 6. The next engine coming in. 23 going traffic. Hey, Keith, this house is going to be the last driveway before you get to the bridge. You make a left and take this driveway all the way down. We're going to here at the truck and run it back through the woods. That copy. It's going to be right past them block homes, correct? Copy that. Engine 6 dispatch, go ahead and dispatch me another tender as well, please.
Copy 1923.
Engine 6, all incoming units. Accountability is going to be alpha side of the engine. I repeat, we have heavy flames and smoke showing from the structure at this time. Getting ready to set up a courtyard lay for defensive attack.
Dispatch to command.
Command, go ahead.
Is your station manned for correction for tender?
Yes, ma'am, there is a tender at our station.
Copy 1923.
Engine 6 dispatch.
Engine 6.
At this time, the structure is about half involved. Can you get with the homeowner, see if there's any way they can let us know if there's any people that live here?
Dispatch back to command. We advised there was someone that was trapped inside of the structure.
Copy that. Engine 6 to 23, what's your ETA?
1 minute.
Copy that, man. When you get here, I need your help up here at the structure, 2 in, 2 out, so we can make entry, see if anybody's inside, please.
Squad 7 command, we're at level 1 coming down the driveway.
Copy that. I need personnel at the house ASAP, please, sir.
Squad 7, come on up to your next driveway. 23 dispatch, show us on scene.
Copy, 1926.
Command, dispatch.
Command, go ahead.
This is going to be a defensive attack.
Copy, 1927.
All right.
I love
We-
seeing everyone's faces out there. Just,
Yeah,
it's tough.
very painful, right? Like I said earlier, a little bit of litigation on this incident. It's been all over YouTube. If you've perused the fire law website, the Kurt Verone website, he has some articles on it and legalese on it. What did we all hear? What are some things that stood out? Miscommunication.
Command and firefighters to actually understand there's a trapped victim inside the building and that she's right in the living room, which truth be told probably is right at the front door. So
Right,
it's probably not that far away from a quick grab.
right, absolutely. So what's the confusion, right? So how many times did the dispatcher tell the responding units that there was someone inside the building? Yeah, cool. What did the first in engine company officer do? Well, what about in relationship to victims? What did he ask the dispatcher? Asked her to come out. Okay, we're going to talk a lot about stress and the physiology behind what happens to you when your heart rate gets to around 150 in a stress environment, not in an exercise environment, but a stress environment. What else? What else did we hear? Cool. We heard fully involved at first and then came back 50% involved. And then we heard.
Well, he also asked for more people to have 2 out to fit before the law.
Yeah. So we got to discuss the 2 out, the OSHA standard, 2 out. What else did we hear? What about the initial? Okay. How about the initial request of the captain to the battalion chief that responded? What's that? Extra personnel, right? So an extra resource. What did the BC say? Denied it. Okay. Yes, sir.
The big thing I took on that is everyone's got their own feelings about on that. We got no victims, and they're going to do what they call 40-yard lay, which is just letting it dry. I'm assuming that amount of time right there is 2, 3, 4+ minutes on this long stretch to when that's time the house is still burning. So for me personally, and I think a lot of us here too, we're going to go straight in on the second, third, and take care of the water supply so we can at least get our 750 gallons in play right now.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because he still said there's a victim in, and he still said it's on defensive attack.
Right.
It's almost like he's trying to talk himself out of the fact that there's a victim in there. And I know that our agency we are in a great spot in relation to something like this. Of course, it could happen. I think we do a good job at tank transfers on mobiles, especially out in 27, where we always get those fires out there off of White and stuff. And then it doesn't get us all stuck into one place, right? So again, we're not trying to pick these guys and gals apart, but there's so much useless radio traffic. Anything we can do, like at this time, whatever, it's all style stuff. It's like, as opposed to what other time? We know you're saying it right now. We got it, right? So there's little things that we as firefighters, officers, BCs and above, if we can cut that stuff down, that first window of the incident might lay a better framework for us to make a grab, right?
Cool. So we're going to discuss a bunch of the things that we just kind of highlighted in just the whatever 5 minutes of the video. Probably one of those, you can find this on YouTube, just throwing it up at your station and talking about it as a company and maybe even inviting the BC over and having a conversation of expectations would be awesome, right? Just on this. So a couple things that resonated with me, and you know, my battalion, I have 50 square miles. I have between 10 and 12 stations that I manage based off of some shared service contracts. Might be the first due BC on another agency's first in zone. I don't know all my first due areas that I'm responsible for, but I implore and impress the importance of my bosses, the captains, to absolutely know their zones. They have the pulse of the community. You're in and out of people's homes in your first due. You're shopping, you're training, you're driving to and from work. You have a way better understanding of what's going on in your response area for your station than a BC, in my mind, could ever have, other than growing up in that station and working in those stations prior to becoming a chief officer, but you lose touch over time. So I'm an intent-based leadership model is kind of what I subscribe to. So if my captains are saying, I need something, my job as a chief officer is to support them, not to question them, not to say, denied, I got too many resources coming. And in this environment, we all know that there was a known person in the building. What about the difference between the dispatcher information and the responding resources information? Who had a better idea of the structure in this case? And did all that information get translated over to the responding units? Some might be in their, computer data, whatever, MDTs or iPads in the narrative. But now go back to civilian dispatchers versus fire-based dispatchers. Maybe it's incumbent upon us to ask the dispatchers to try to get some more information. The dispatcher knew elderly patient. Dispatcher knew unable to walk. Dispatcher knew the best way to get in or out of the building, either front or back door, right? Dispatcher knew that it was in the woods. Dispatcher knew that it was a one-story log cabin. Dispatcher knew that the fire might be in the attic. None of that information got translated to the responding units. And if it did, we still don't even know, based off of the physiology and the physiological response to that first due engine company officer, based off of the information that he said. And we'll dive into the physiology here in a few minutes. But just a high level overview of this incident. So we kind of already defined our mission, right? Our primary mission is to protect life. What other mission-driven things do we discuss on a daily basis? What is the Sacramento Metro talk about? Is it just life? Okay, yeah, cool. But I think we can all agree, right? Life, incident, and property is what we're here for. Primarily life, and then if we've addressed life, we're going to start to address the incident stabilization. Once we do that, we're going to start working on property conservation. I think we can all agree on that, right? A lot has been done in the last 10 years on water application and ventilation, right? UL and NIST, now it's UL and FSFRI. A lot of data, right? Flow path, ventilation, transitional attack, all these data points and information on how we address fires take a lot of consideration on water application and ventilation. We know that if we apply some water, it needs some air, right? Once we start applying water, we need to ventilate it in some manner, whether it's vertical or horizontal. If we open up and introduce air, we probably need to put some water at some point very quickly. I think we can all agree on that. What we tend to lose our mindset on is our primary mission-driven focus of search. And we're going to kind of dive into why in a little bit.
A group of scientists placed 5 monkeys in a cage and in the middle a ladder with bananas on top. Every time a monkey went up the ladder, the scientists soaked the rest of the monkeys with cold water. After a while, every time a monkey went up the ladder, the others beat up the one on the ladder. After some time, no monkey dare go up the ladder, regardless of the temptation. Scientists then decided to substitute one of the monkeys. The first thing this new monkey did was go up the ladder. Immediately, the other monkeys beat him up. After several beatings, the new member learned not to climb the ladder, even though he never knew why. A second monkey was substituted, and the same occurred. The first monkey participated on the beating for the second monkey. The replacements repeated until what was left was a group of 5 monkeys that, even though never received a cold shower, continued to beat up any monkey who attempted to climb the ladder. If you asked the new group of monkeys why the beatings took place, the answer would probably be,
"Well, I don't know. That's just how things are done around here."
All right, so maybe you can contribute to the daily firehouse behavior, right? Of maybe we do things and we don't even really know why. It's just the reason why we've always done it, maybe. So in the context of search, how do we search? How have we been trained to search? Okay, methodically, right through the front door. A right hand, traditional, the word traditional, right or left hand search. What about in the, maybe not in the in-service recruit academies, but in the college academy realm? How do we, yes, right? Exactly. So they want us to have one hand on the wall, one hand on the tool, our negative one hand on the hose line, and our negative second hand on someone else's boot. That's how we learn. And if you don't do it that way, there's a potential to fail, right? So I talked a little bit earlier this morning about my son. My son's 19. He's starting in the fire service, going through EMT school. He's a part-time paid call firefighter down in San Luis Obispo with CAL FIRE. And he had a search class. And they taught him. I go, "Hey, buddy, how did you, what'd they tell you? How did it go? How did the drill go today?" "Oh, well, I put my hand on the wall and I had to hold on to the officer's boot and we just went around in a circle on the floor." And so that is the very first introduction to every single member of the fire service of how we introduce search concepts. And there's a lot of variables. We could talk about, oh, it's experience and it's time and we need a jumping off point to learn. Those are all great. And maybe administratively, they seem logical, but the reality is our primary search, methodical, circus animal parade, is what are we doing to the survivability rate by incorporating that in our teaching methodology to our firefighters? We're decreasing, unfortunately, we're decreasing the survivability rate, okay? And then you start to add in the physiological response of having some anxiety, your heart rate goes up, you're stressed, and you revert back to your training. And if we've trained our firefighters to go on a traditional right or left hand, well, even though we know maybe where a victim is, again, we're starting to develop the dominoes to not support survivability, which is not supporting our mission. Make sense? So let's look at another avenue. Let's look at the survivability rate in cardiac arrest. Okay. What's our mindset with CPR? Everybody does it. We do CPR on every single person that has a cardiac arrest. We teach it in schools now, in high school. We do CPR Saturdays to the community outreach. We do hands only CPR to try to increase survivability. But the reality is, out of hospital cardiac arrests, 350,000 cardiac arrests every year, there's a 12% chance of survivability. You bring them to bright lights and cold steel and in the hospital setting, and they have every option, every method, everything available to help their survivability, and we only go to almost 25%. But we encourage CPR on every single cardiac arrest. Take the mindset of, do we encourage search on every single fire that we go to based off of the information that we glean? Fully involved. What does fully involved mean to you if you're closing your eyes or you're driving down the street to the incident and the first due engine boss says fully involved?
No survivable space.
No survivable space immediately jumps out. Maybe we're going defensive, fellas, right? Well, we're going to dive into the data of what the survivability rate is of what a traditional fully involved structure is. It's pretty amazing. And maybe we need to change our terminology when we do our report on conditions. Just maybe.
So real quick, we don't have a lot of chiefs on this one, but we have a lot of people out on the Zoom link, which is awesome. So words matter, right? So as firefighters on a truck, whether you're on a truck, medic, engine, if you're tasked with performing a primary search, right? Words matter. If I get on there and say, hey, there's a collapse, then what do you think is going to happen? Yeah, they're going to pull you out. We're going to do a tactical retreat. Versus if I say, hey, some of the lid came down in this one room, looks like structurally we're still good. If you take the time, think before we get on there and convey the message, conditions, actions, needs. We're terrible at it. I don't want to be on that radio as much as I like to talk. But there's times where you need to be on it and you need to be on the money with what, information is pertinent. So if you get on there and say well involved or fully involved, it has a different meaning for everybody. So it's just like saying, hey, everyone's out. Kind of keep that to yourself because you're downshifting me. I'm coming in 5th gear. Don't put me in 1st gear before I'm even there until you've really gotten a full lap around and really know what you're looking at. And you will, like you said, we're going to show you some more data.
Yeah. And hopefully, and I apologize, I'm going to go back a little bit, is I'm going to try to talk from the perspective from the chief officer to the captain to the firefighter and hit all three with the idea of getting us all having the same operating picture when we're responding to and working at incidents. Chief officers, is there any chief officers here?
I know there's a few on the Zoom.
Okay.
So feel free to text in on the Zoom link, 616-2491, and we'll cover anything.
Cool. And then captains providing perspective is huge for the discussion points today. So let's take let's stay with the theme of cardiac arrest and bring the cardiac arrest mentality into the structure fire. And what is our survivability in cardiac arrest when we find a victim that's in cardiac arrest? Our data is showing that we have a 31% survivability rate. When we find a victim in cardiac arrest, pull them out on the lawn and start CPR on them. We have a better survivability rate than the national average when Mrs. Smith has a cardiac arrest in the Safeway supermarket. And we have a better national average than the physicians that have every single drug, procedure, equipment to their avail to try to provide a survivable person in the hospital setting, which is pretty interesting. And maybe that starts to drive our mindset that is this survivable space or is it searchable space? And even if it's maybe doubtful that it's survivable, if we pull that victim out of the house, they have a 31% chance of surviving. So think about that. Okay, so let's talk about the history of why. So the American Fire Service, right? In the 1970s, what occurred? What do you see on this picture? A memorial, maybe? How about the Top Finder? Who knows the history of the Top Finder? 1970s. It was a national campaign to increase survivability of children at structure fires. So the fire service got together with the communities, printed out these stickers, gave them out for free in grocery stores, in hardware stores, anywhere they could. And where did these stickers go? On the windows of their children, right? And that was when probably the first historical reference of expectation of us as firefighters helping people's loved ones. It was a sticker that said, my child or my loved one is here, go here and you'll find them and bring them out to me to safety. Okay, it wasn't a fire prevention campaign. It was a survivability campaign, right? And it was probably the first kind of notice of what we today talk about VEIS, right? It was a social trust and a social expectation started to materialize. And today, if you look at Polk County and litigation, now legalese is starting to show the right to expect or conscious disregard. based off of this community expectation that we're here, our primary mission is to save life. And when we don't do that, and people start to get a little bit in tune to what's going on, they start to take legal action. Polk County. What happened in Alameda a few years ago? It was probably eight or 9 years ago.
Yeah, ran out in the water.
Yeah, Alameda City, surrounded by water. No policies in place to have firefighters enter the marine environment to save a life. Individual wants to commit suicide, goes into the water, ends up drowning as firefighters stayed on the beach. What was the community outreach there? Favorable? No. Okay. And do you think the firefighters from Alameda City wanted the individual to die? No. Do they want to help? Absolutely. Could they help? Maybe. Did they have processes and procedures in place to allow some leader's intent to occur to go and help? No. Okay, so a lot of times, and Polk County is no different, it's the culture or the processes or the procedures or the guidelines aren't in place to allow action to occur to save life. Again, back to our mission. None of it is on purpose, right? Some of it is we don't know what we don't know. Some of it is we're hamstringed by cultural organizations that don't allow us to have intent-based operations of you saying you'd like to do this and this is the reason why, versus, hey, may I do this, this mother may I system, and not being able to make a decision without asking, okay? I always say we hire the best and the brightest. There's probably every organization says we pride ourselves in hiring the best and the brightest. Then we promote those best and the brightest to be company officers. And then sometimes we handcuff those company officers because we start to live in this culture or this environment of handcuff and not allowing them to make decisions without asking permission, right? In my organization, I tell the officers, you know your crew, you manage your station, you manage with your time, you manage your training, you manage all your activities. You do all these things. Who am I to now say, when we go on a fire, it's different? You got to ask me. No, just provide me with the information that you've made had a good decision-making process in as consistent and concise manner as possible of what you're intending to do. And my job is to support you, right? And if we kind of get into that mindset, that's going to help clean up communication. It's going to help clean up efficiency of operations. And it's going to ultimately allow us to apply our behavior to our mission of what we're all here for.
As 4 children fight to live after being pulled out of a burning apartment in South LA, the firefighter who risked his life is being praised tonight. CBS 2's Dave Lopez spoke with the man who some feel personifies courage under fire.
I found the kids by actually sweeping the floor with my hand. In my arm.
You couldn't see?
Couldn't see.
Visibility zero?
Zero.
That's the situation 26-year-old Los Angeles City firefighter Bryce Gutierrez rushed into. 4 children trapped inside this burning apartment. Flames all around and smoke so thick you couldn't even see the hand in front of your face.
And did you hear the kids crying or anything?
Initially, when I first jumped in head first in the window, I did hear the kids cry. I tried to get their attention, asked if they can hear me, and I didn't get any response.
So he started searching, groping around, trying to find those children.
I felt their leg, pulled them towards me just to confirm that it was a kid. Once I did, I picked them up, had them out the window.
And that firefighter then ran to an ambulance to render first aid. 3 more to go, because Gutierrez said he was told there were 4 children in the room. So back on his hands and knees he went, in the intense heat, the thick smoke, his gas mask allowing him to breathe.
Once I handed out the 3rd kid, they yelled at me that there's 1 more kid trapped in there. Went back in, and the last kid I found was in the bathroom.
The children, 3 boys and a girl, ages 2 to 7, were not responsive, he said, but he knew they were alive because he could hear them breathing. And then, just to make sure, he checked around very quickly and was told, that's it, get out of there.
My safety doesn't matter at that point. I'm here. I do this job to save people's lives.
And that's what he did.
What resonates with you on this?
He knows what his mission was.
Yeah,
That's what he signed up for.
absolutely. What else? What were the fire conditions upon arrival? Heavy fire? Yeah. What's that?
Heavy heat, smoke.
What's the visibility?
0.
0, right? And we'll dive into the data, but your organization's data really matches the national average data as far as survivability in 0 to almost 0 smoke or visibility conditions, which is pretty interesting, and it's pretty high.
And that's a known rescue, right? We don't always get that. I know a lot of guys that I've worked with a long time. We don't always get that. And probably the best day of our career, 21B shift, we had 3 people that were in bad shape. That one, especially the 8-year-old, really not good information when we got there, right? So even more so drives home the point of words matter on the radio. What are we asking for? What do we have? You have that upon arrival as an officer. If we don't get our eyes on it and you don't have trust in your folks to get in there and get a good assessment of if it's tenable or not, then it delays the rescue aspect. In our department, 38%, there were no reports of victims. We're pulling people out. That's Metro Fire specific with Captain Flint's data that he's been compiling. So we're going to keep touching on more as we go. I don't want to get too far ahead, but this is good stuff to think about, right?
Yeah, and everything we're talking about is trying to set the stage for developing a mindset and developing the reps in your brain of how and why and when we should, and how important it is to search. And what is our incident priorities on when the assignment of search gets put in. Question.
With these search issues that you've got bulleted up there, how does that, the old school where for ages, nobody wanted to do anything until a 2 in and 2 out was set up?
Yeah, we're gonna dive right into
Yeah, we
that.
hit that on the OSHA and things.
Yes. So I'm gonna kind of walk through these search issues, right? So we talked a little bit about traditional search training. How did we all, and I learned in the early 90s, right, of the circus act, the circus walk, or the human centipede, or whatever, of holding the boot and having negative hands to actually search. What does state fire training say in regards to search? What does the firefighter 1, state fire marshal, firefighter 1 curriculum say in regards to search? How many hours? 12 hours, okay? They're rewriting their curriculum to try to meet a national standard of IFSAC and Pro Board and become in alignment with NFPA. So there's about a page and a half of information on the lesson plan on firefighter 1 curriculum for search. It breaks it down into 3 sections: oriented, VIS, and firefighter rescue. So a lot of academies will spend that 12 hours and start to integrate both firefighter rescue search and civilian search, which is two different things. Okay, so they only advocate or really say, here's 12 hours, and everybody's crammed for time. And a lot of times that's about all you get in the academy. So NFPA 1670 is where you can find this, where it advocates search or talks about search, and it's like less than a paragraph. Okay. And then what does OSHA do, which confuses a lot of organizations? And this morning, I'll let the captain kind of chime back in about your philosophical standpoint of what OSHA says. But let's think of the national level. Let's think of maybe California. Let's think of an agency that might not get the response that Sacramento gets with the amount of people that you get on a residential or commercial fire. What does OSHA say? What's the 2 in 2 out rule say? For every 2 people in, you have to have 2 people out. What else does it say? Not to preclude from life rescue. What does that mean? And how is that interpreted? Exactly, right? And look at what Polk County, their interpretation was, it's every time. Okay? And there's agencies in California that it's every time. Okay. You want to, Cap, you want to talk a little bit about your philosophical standpoint agency wise as far as 2 in 2 out goes?
Yeah, I mean, everybody should be pretty familiar with it. When JD and Curry worked on the strategies and tactics residential 3.5 years ago.
We changed from traditional 2 in 2 out. So we didn't have SOGs when I started, then we did, and basically second engine was 2 out, fourth engine was Rick every single time. If they said known victim, known location, then we sometimes would bypass 2 out, but for the most of the time we had 2 out on every incident. Then we switched to the mindset of, if we're in a life priority, we're arriving at a residence, we assume that there are people in there until we search it and clear it. So we don't very often have a 2 out early on in an incident, and that's at a residential. So that is more of our culture at this point. And there's agencies that come to our captain's test and look at us like, whoa, how do you get away with that? So it's still out there. There's different mindsets of what's appropriate and how to interpret that.
Good. And again, I'm not here to dictate policy or procedures or change. That's for your agency to do on its own. But it sounds like, talking with the captain, is you're in alignment with your mission in that regard. And the distinction is residential structures, and assuming that it's not clear until we've declared it clear, versus maybe a little different mindset on commercial structures. There is a difference, right? Now, does that answer your OSHA 2 in 2 out kind of question that you had when I threw up the slide?
Kind of.
Okay, you want to hit me with the question again, and hopefully I can help you out.
Well, it just by reading that, you're giving some examples of what some of the issues are that we're having problems with. But we still have, like you said, these departments that are dead set on these 2 in and 2 out. And just hearing that guy's direction that he was giving in Polk County, where he went immediately defensible 2 in and 2 out. And why are we still allowing that? That's what's frustrating to me, is we talk about it all day long, but we're still teaching it and we're still allowing it.
We're not.
Yeah, we're not specifically at Metro Fire, but I see other agencies talking about it all the time.
Absolutely.
And it's like, why are we still doing that? Why are we still not giving every fireman a tick that actually works? Right. Why are we spending any kind of money on some little orange thing that doesn't even work? We went to a training the other day and we couldn't even see in fake smoke with those little things. So it's like, why are we still doing the same things when we know that it's proven that they're not working?
Right.
That's all I wanted to ask you about. Because you've been involved in this teaching aspect for a long time. So you've heard these questions fielded to you. Yes. And you probably have a lot of insight on the direction that we're going.
So the wheels of change happen very slow, right? In the fire service, unfortunately. And I'm at the point, and I don't want to speak for you, I'm at the point of I'm going to be the change agent for only a few more years. And spreading the message and advocating the reality and putting the people in place to change administrative procedures, the change agents are the ones you're hiring today, right? It's going to take generations to change. If you look in the fire service, we have changed quite a bit. It's just maybe not as fast as you or I would look at or like to see. I've been talking about search for a long time, and I've been talking about this OSHA rule for a long time. And the reality of the business is there's some people that, unfortunately, it's going to take a generation to change that mindset. It's just the human factor, or the reality of our cultural fire service norm.
What I will tell you, you guys know me pretty well. It's easy to be really outspoken and be on that fringe of, oh man, these guys just don't get it, right? But I will tell you that structurally, as an agency, while I was never into some of the stuff that we have on the walls out here, it never really made a lot of sense to me. We start putting this class together, we start digging into this, and especially teaching at Fresno, where that's how I've gotten to know Matt over the last 6-7 years, taking those classes and seeing how other people do it. And Captain Aldrich and a lot of you can attest to this. We do a pretty damn good job at Metro Fire on a whole. When you come back from another class and they're teaching the hand-on boot search, and you're just going, dude, time out, not efficient, right? Versus going and taking a class with, your Stocktons and going to Fresno where there's a group of people there, same mission, same mindset. It's teaching that mentality and that mindset, and getting all the people in this room that haven't been to Fresno and haven't gone outside to just keep doing those things and seeing what's out there, because I could tell you that this is going to lay the framework for our agency moving forward. For June, we're going to have a search manual. So you're on the medic, you're on the engine, you're on a truck. We're going to give you your riding list, all your definitions, and then we're going to hit you with some hands-on training, right? When you find the victim, are you getting them down a ladder? How are you getting them downstairs? How are you grabbing the 300-pound nude victim, right? So we're definitely, this is the start of moving in that direction. And like anything in the fire service, I challenge all of you to do what was probably done for you. Grab somebody and bring them with you. That's the only way we can make this place better. And on a whole, we're in good shape. We're burning. We are removing people from buildings. Those last couple months have been nuts for our agency. And I know I've seen a lot of you guys on some fires lately. So we're working on it, doing the best we can. And all we can do is hope that it's infectious, right? And that we keep bringing it forward that, hey, 38% of the time Metro Fire shows up, there's people in there. I don't care what the neighbor says. They don't know. We don't know until we get in there and search it, right? And real quick, and then I'll be off my soapbox. For the newer folks or maybe less experienced officers or firefighters, it's as simple as this for me. If you have searchable space and I can bodily enter with my gear and my training, then it's a go. Metro Fire supports you and says, go on and do what you need to do. Let command know, let your officers should know where you're at, right? Have some accountability, but by no stretch are we saying, or is anyone telling you can't do that, right? Or, you can't search that, it's a vacant. Hey, we're searching vacants. Are we defensive when we find searchable space? Hey, command, I found some searchable space on the Charlie side. I'm going to enter in with engine 27. We're going to do a search. We go in, search it, we come out, we call it par. Boom, we're good, right? So what we say and do matters, versus if there truly is fire blowing out of every hole, every opening of that building, and you can't bodily enter that building, it's a no-go, right? And that's a very off chance that there's a full no-go, right? We find the searchable space, we do the best we can, and we might be finding bones later. But that, on a whole, this agency is very aggressive on search, and the American Fire Service, I think, is hopefully moving in that direction. I know the firefighter survey, which is what we reference this on, people are talking about it. People are talking about them first versus the safety first culture that it's been ingrained in us for a long time.
So the firefighter rescue survey, how many people have heard of it before today?
Flint, have you heard of it?
No. It's good, maybe 50%. So 3,000 rescues, there are close to 3,000 rescues. It's been around for almost 3 years. It's experiential data, not experimental data, right? It's experiential in the fact that you have to perform a rescue and actually go and onto the website or on the app and fill out the survey, okay? Every agency, 50% in the room, you talk about the advocates, the founders of the firefighter rescue, and you listen to them, and they say probably less than 50% of their own organization still has looked at the firefighter rescue survey. We are leaps and bounds in 3 years based off of this data from Brian Brush and Justin McWilliams and all the firefighter rescue survey individuals that don't take a dime from it and advocate and try to promote the message to get the data out there to help you drive your decision making and help drive those administrative changes to meet the actuality of what is occurring on the fire ground today. So I'm pleased and happy and optimistic that we're so much farther in the last 3 years than we have been in the last 15 or 10, even 10 years. So national average, we know search issues based off of all this information is we know what's wrong with how we don our PPE. How do we teach our recruits to don their mask? From the ground, right? What about okay, you better put your helmet between your crotch and sit on your gloves so the drill master doesn't come and kick your helmet, right? So now I'm down on the ground putting my stuff on, and what are we seeing on the fire ground? They go onto the lawn, drop to the knee, do what they've ingrained hundreds of times from their academy behavior and how they've drilled in the apparatus bay. And what does that do to our situational awareness? Yeah, so our eyes are no longer on the target. You have a resident, a mom, someone saying, my loved one is in this window, and they watch the firefighter drop to their knee, take their head down, and take the time it takes for them, however they've manipulated their gear, to put on. What about training to the tactical donning environment? Meaning, donning your SCBA with your gloves on, having a system in place that you never take your eyes off the target. Those are the things that we could do from a company level to a chief officer level to advocate for better efficiency on the fire ground. And then nationally, we know we miss rooms, right? And I didn't talk about this morning. FDIC did a search class this year, 200 participants, and only 5 out of that 200 participants found the first victim in the hallway on the ground because of the debris and the urgency to search. So we're missing victims on a national basis, a lot. We tend to, where are we assigning the search in our priority order of arrival? Are we assigning search after we knock it down, after we have multiple hose lines in place, after ventilation's been? Where on the priority list are we assigning search? Yeah.
And so that's important. We had to cover that. We didn't much on the first one. Engines are searching, right? Not a big deal. You're probably not as comfortable searching as maybe I would be being on a truck. And that's okay. That's what we're working on towards this. But there's times where I come in on the truck, right? And someone on an engine's already been tasked with a search. Then it's on me to get face to face with them and come up with hey, what have you guys covered already? And then let's help each other out and communicate and clean it all up. Because yeah, we do have engines searching, and it's definitely foreign to our neighbors on the west because they're more truck heavy. And that's all right. We have to do what we've got to do. 3-person companies, light on trucks, and we're burning and we're busy. So we're already behind the 8 ball. Rescue 21, you're behind the 8 ball going left. We're behind the 8 ball a lot of times going right at 23. There's just some huge areas, which is great because you're going to more work. But we are, we just can't always rely on that truck to be right around the corner. So that's why we're doing this. And back to the PPE donning, another pet peeve of mine. You have to have your own experiences in this job to start making you mask up with your gloves on or doing things differently. For me, it was slicing a finger, pulling hose and going, okay, probably need to start doing this with my gloves on. And then seeing how slow on my own video of like how slow I was to get my stuff going and get masked up and get in there. So that's why I've been doing gloves on, masking, because I had finally reached a point where I'm like, dude, I'm done. And you start doing it enough, you're 10 seconds, 15 seconds. I drilled with you the other day, right? It's quick. You're there, you're in. So time matters. And what we showing up, I always think about how do we look to the public, right? You ever ask someone in the public, what do you expect of your fire department? Ask them at the grocery store. You'll be blown away. They expect you to come and help them and get in there and get them out if they're trapped. Just like the lady in Polk County. So being quick with your gloves, with your, however you're going to mask, be proficient and get it on and get it done so that we can get in and do what we, swore an oath to do.
So based on some of the systems that we've ingrained in the American Fire Service training, we know that it's taking too long to search. And we're going to dive into the data here. How about knowing where to search? Well, we're gonna look at the data. What is the traditional mindset of how we talk about search? Where do we start our search traditionally? Yeah, as close to the fire and then work our way out. Okay, when we look at the data, we'll see what the percentage of victim findings are from the fire attack company versus what our percentage of victim recognition from our primary search. And when we kind of add those two together without giving it away, maybe we can be a little bit more efficient if we know what's already occurring nationally. And then our continuity of search is not maintained, and that's experience. It's training. It's being on the same page. It's understanding each other's roles as the search team and what you're actually doing and where maybe you're missing stuff and not going back to it. And what is the national average saying as far as how many victims are in buildings? And we'll talk about that stuff too. So last night, as I was kind of just rolling through the slide deck, I Googled firefighter residential search. And the top pictures I put in the screen, okay? This is still what's being advocated in Jones and Bartlett books, IFSTA manuals, and all over the internet. What do we see here? We see the human centipede.
Inefficiency.
We see, continuity of people, but where are they looking and where's their focus? It's focused on their boot in front of them. And the last time I checked it, and I don't think that's a true Halligan bar, but we'll call it a Halligan bar or hooligan or whatever, because I don't think it is a real Halligan bar. But the last time I checked, the bar doesn't have feelings. So why are we sweeping the floor to try to locate victims with something that doesn't have feelings? Again, how are we trained, and what are we doing when we go into an environment where maybe we haven't been there before? We're going to revert back to how we've been traditionally trained.
Orlando Fire Department.
911 transfer.
Thank you.
Fire. We're set for traffic.
What is the address of the emergency?
It's 2338 Conway Drive.
2338 Conway Drive. Conway Drive?
Conway Road.
Conway Road.
Conway Road. Yes.
Okay. Is this the Grove apartment?
Yes, ma'am.
Which apartment? Which apartment?
It's an upstairs apartment.
Is an upstairs apartment? Okay.
Yes.
Do you
the
see?
whole building's going on? The whole building's going on fire.
Engine 11, Engine 6, Engine 1, Tower 1, Tower 8, Rescue 1, Heavy Rescue 1, District 3, District 4, Apartment Fire, The Grove Apartments, 2338 Conway Road, across of Lancashire in Michigan. All units select OFD 3, OFD 3.
Orlando Fire Department.
Hi, my name is Mudez.
Yes, go ahead. What's the address of the emergency?
2338 South Conway Road, apartment J like Jack.
Okay. And we are getting a call of a fire there?
Yes, there's a fire in front of my door. I can't get out, and there's smoke coming in inside of my house, and I have 4 kids with me.
Okay, so you are trapped in apartment J?
Yes.
Okay, where is the fire? Outside your apartment?
Outside the door, yes.
Outside the door?
Yes.
Okay, I want you to stay on the phone with me just 1 second, okay?
Okay.
All right.
Engine 11, Engine 6, Engine 1, Tower 8, Rescue 1, Heavy Rescue 1, District 3, District 4, Apartment Fire at The Grove, 2338 Conway Road between Lancashire and Michigan. Apartment J. Juliet advised they are stuck, trapped in the apartment, unable to get out, and there is fire in the apartment.
District 3 Orlando, we have heavy smoke showing. District 4, District 3, I would suggest we fill out the second alarm.
Engine 11, District 3, we got a large column of smoke.
Orlando to all units, be advised a female and 4 children are trapped in apartment J. Juliet. Smoke and fire are coming into the apartment. They're unable to get out.
District 4, Orlando, go ahead and fill out the second alarm, please.
Engine 11 on scene, two-story. Fire apartment wood frame, heavy fire showing. There's a plug behind the engine. Plug engine 3/4.
District 4 is on the scene.
District 4.
Division 1 is responding. Orlando, did you fill out the second?
Check. We're filling it out.
Charge the line. District 3. Assuming command. Engine 11 command, be advised, this is the center courtyard of 2 different buildings. We got 4 units involved on fire. Engine 8 command, we're coming into the scene, we'll pull the second line. Tower 1's on the scene, we're spotted on the north side.
Tower 1.
Command. Engine 1, go ahead and give me a supply line. Engine 1 on scene, check.
Engine 1.
Engine 11 command, I've got a total of 4 apartments on fire on the 2nd floor.
Atlanta copied Engine 11's agent applied. There is still someone trapped in apartment J Juliet. We are still landline.
Command to Tower 1. Did you copy? J, apartment J. We're trying to confirm which one's apartment J. Orlando Fire Department.
I'm getting my babies in the bathroom, and the smoke is all over the apartment.
All right, I'm going to stay on the phone till they come get you, okay?
Yes.
All right, what I want you to do, you're in the bathroom?
Yes.
Okay.
Boys on
Is the
floor.
door closed?
Yes, the door of my bathroom, my unit's closed. Yes.
Okay, what I want you to do is cover the cracks with wet clothes or towels, okay?
Okay, wet clothes or towels.
Right. Let me know when you've done that, okay?
I'm doing it right now.
Okay.
Get out, Adam. Let me put water. The smoke is now coming.
Right, I know. And cover the air vents if you can, okay? Cover the air vents too if you can. Hang on just a second, okay?
You can't breathe already. The smoke is all over. What do you want me to put the wet towel again?
What I want you to do is put the wet towels at the floor by the door so you can close off the door, okay?
I did.
Okay.
But the smoke is coming through the vent inside of the bathroom.
Okay, see if you can get somebody to something to cover the vent, okay?
Okay.
Okay?
Okay. Oh, please hurry.
I told them where you are. They're coming as fast as they can, okay?
Oh, my goodness. I don't think we're going to make it. The kids is... Oh, please.
We're on the way as fast as we can, okay? Don't try to break any windows out, though, okay?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Put as much stuff between the door and the floor as you can, okay? And make sure you keep it wet.
Okay, there's fire, smoke coming in the bathroom we are.
Is there fire in the bathroom or just smoke?
Smoke now coming all over the place in the bathroom.
Okay.
Now. The kids cannot breathe, ma'am.
Okay, we're coming as fast as we can.
The baby is passing out, ma'am.
Okay, I'm letting them know, okay?
Ma'am, please.
They're on their way as fast as they can.
Ma'am, someone needs to get in the floor. No. You could get in the Daniel. Daniel, take the baby to the house. Lay on the floor, boy.
We're coming as fast as we can. Just stay away from the door, okay?
Yes.
G73 command. Go ahead. On the south apartment building, we just removed 5 victims out of the one apartment. We're still trying to get it all clear on this full unit.
Mind if I take this one?
Yeah, go for it.
So this one we didn't get to hot wash on the last one as much as I would like to. That's pretty gnarly, right? We get one shot at that one. Fair to say? Coming in. Look at the response compared to what we would get on that too, right? So firefighters on medics. We're all going to be on them this summer, whether you like it or not, right? So we're out and about, right? You see that column and you're on the medic and you hear that there's 5 people trapped. The dispatch gives you that great information, right? It's not time for Mother May I. It's like, hey, we're in the area, we're adding to this, and you're going to get supported 9 times out of 10, something like that, right? So you heard the chief, right? He said, hey, I suggest we start a second alarm, right? With what we're seeing a giant column. We know we've got a fire. Now we've got 5 victims, right? So I can't reiterate enough. We see good ladders. We see aggressive crews are getting there quickly. We're a well-provisioned fire department. There's no reason that we shouldn't have the same outcome on this. And I'm pretty positive that we would knock that out of the park too. But ask yourself, if you're in a position where you're working a lot or whatever, what are you bringing to the table? You get one shot at that fire right there. And it's go time. There's 5 people trapped in a small bathroom. So what are we looking for window wise? Right, a small window. So even more of a pain, right? So I think this is good stuff to see. This is right in this battalion. This is in every battalion. We get these apartment fires every year. And it's just, come to work expecting fires and expecting people to be inside. Fair to say?
Do we know on that? Was that a VES search or they have?
No, they went through the apartment. So we're just gonna talk quickly about this and then we'll take a quick break. So what resonated? What did you hear or see that resonated with you?
Dispatches. Way better.
Yeah, maybe some training has occurred between the fire department and the dispatcher. Refining the questions. What else? Shocker, right? We could actually invite our dispatch to actually train with them. What else? How about the communication of the victims found versus primary search not complete? What was whatever it was, Tower, whatever the company that found the adult and children, what did they say? What was their communication
They
message?
found the victims, they're still not complete the crime.
Yeah, 1 adult, 4 children, or 1 adult, 3 children, but we're still working on the primary. And we'll talk a little bit about how, when you guys declare primary and some of the confusion points that have occurred. And I think nationally that occurs, especially when you introduce multiple search companies.
I think this is a good example where an engine crew could have easily done the BIS. Instead of pulling that second line, they arrived almost simultaneous, a little after that first engine. But immediately, instead of pulling that second line, 5 victims, okay, let's do a BIS and look after this fucking building and try and get people out.
Totally.
And that's the breakover, right? We're talking about our staffing, our trucks versus engine ratio. I think it's important that we don't all get tunnel vision on, hey, now we're all going to go just take every window, right? Sure.
That's what you want, but like,
yeah,
victims are the priority.
And what do we do in the fire service, right? I think a good boss, what I like in a boss when I go to something, is when they let the situation dictate their tactics. We're not sitting in the rig on the way there. Okay, Jimmy, you're going to do this, and because when we get there, it's hardly ever what they say it is, right? On every call. And you got to make heads or tails of like, where's the most bang for our buck when we're searching? Yeah. And that's a bang, bang play. So the more we train, the more we talk about it, the more we do it, the better we're going to be, the better suited we will be to do that.
Yes, sir.
Has there been some discussion with our dispatch? I mean, I haven't heard our dispatchers. Is there discussion of them of like, hey, victim, where are you in this building?
Yeah, I think they've got a role. I don't know if the Pro QA is any different. We could find out. Certainly, it's a good question. I know that we, as a district, having a chief officer at times in that command and trying to make it more of a command center. Right now, it's the city has an officer in there. So a chief officer that if we get something like this, hopefully they'll be around to kind of help guide that. But it's by no stretch is it like a CAL FIRE setup where it's a command and I think that works great, but it's the cost. It's we'd love to have a captain on days in there, right? I think it'd be pretty nice if we could, do our calls a little differently. But because of the lawsuits and the way that our state is, they go through those charts, and that's what we have right now. So we're by no stretch do we have a command center. I think they'd like to do that someday. It's just not really supported right now in all entail.
The importance of search. What's the data on survivability showing us? Where's our victims? And maybe starting to work on our mindset of how we're going to approach our search plan, right? So we know every year over 3,000 civilians die in fires. That's been, all the way back from the America Burning publication that came out to now having firefighter rescue survey. A couple things with the firefighter rescue survey, it's only the information that firefighters and agencies are actually filling out the survey. We know that UL and it used to be NIST, but UL and FSRI have partnered up and gotten us a ton of data. I'm going to let the captain talk really quickly. The UL and FSRI have done a search study. I thought it was coming out in the next month or so. They dropped the publication and all the information out this morning. So I'm going to let you maybe chime in just a little bit on that study and some of the anecdotal or some of the findings that they've had.
Yeah, so the study got released this morning around 9 o'clock. It's the search and size up study. Basically, I was looking at, like Chief earlier mentioned, they've done bits and pieces of different tactics, starting with ventilation and attic fires and moving through coordinated fire attack. We're now looking at using suppression and ventilation tactics. Started dabbling a little bit into what's happening to victims. And then we started a search and size up project about, I got on the panel in 2018, so it's been about a 4-year long project. Obviously COVID had an impact there, but long story short, the tactical considerations, there's about 8 to 10 of them or so, somewhere in that range. Some are built on prior tactical considerations from other studies. And then a lot of it's just common sense, right? So when I go out and talk to people about this stuff, people get intimidated by numbers, graphs, thousands of pages, right? The reality of it is most of it, if you read the material and you look through it, it's really supporting most of our experiences / practices, right? So that should be giving us a little bit of confidence in the things that we've been doing, as well as providing us more information to make even more informed decisions, right? You'll see as this thing goes along, when the online stuff comes out, how interactive it'll be. It'll talk a lot about search and victim removal and potential exposures that people would have had because of the way we conducted and designed the experiment. So the report's out there. It's a lot of pages. I've already shared a lot of it with our search, with a couple people on the search team. Captain Flint was one of them a couple of weeks ago, and Chief Johnson, and so on and so forth. So take from it what you can, do the rest on paper, and enjoy.
Yeah. So a little bit of the difference between the firefighter rescue survey and the search and size up study, right? So the firefighter rescue survey is experiential data. We went to a fire, we have all these uncontrollable variables. This is what occurred, this is how we rescued, and then all the different data points. Where were they found? How long before search was initiated? How long did search take? The survivability rate based off of all these different variables. Now the UL and FSRI is more, so that's experiential data. UL FSRI is data collected via a scientific method. And the difference between a scientific method is you create a hypothesis, right? You have an idea, and then you have some specific variables. And then you remove one of those variables and look at and redo the experiment in the same exact way. And then you maybe put that variable back in and take another variable out. So combining the scientific method with the experiential data is really, I think, going to help us form a better, conclusive, evidence-based approach to how we address search, right? So some of the experiential data from the firefighter rescue survey is what I'm going to dive into now. So 3,000 civilians every year we know are dying in fires. Where are they dying? 37% of them are dying while they're trying to escape. Makes pretty good sense, right? They've left their bedroom and they're trying to go the way they normally go out the building every day. How many of you go out your residence every single day through the front door? How many maybe don't, right? Maybe, how about your spouse if you're married? My wife never goes out the front door because why? Her car's in the garage. So she goes out the garage door. So her muscle memory and escape plan is probably the garage versus the front door. And it's also the garage is closer to our master bedroom. Then, so 31% are dying while they're sleeping. So 60 some odd percent, right? 68% are dying either while they're sleeping or trying to escape. Let that kind of settle in. And then there's some variable data, unable to act, meaning like invalid, wheelchair bound, unable to escape on their own. We have to put in the irrational act. And then we have some that about, hey, I've left the building. Oh no, a loved one's in there or prized possessions in there. I'm going to go back in, and then they get overcome. Okay. We know based off of the information that a lot of our civilians are dying, not from a thermal insult, not being burned, but from an uncontrollable airway problem. The smoke, products of combustion are killing them well before the fire is reaching them. And that kind of goes back into our data. Maybe the fire isn't in the bedroom, but they're dying while they're sleeping or escaping based on the products from the products of combustion. Okay, so we know that. So where are our victims? We know 45% of our victims are in bedrooms, 40%, so 80 some odd percent are in rooms, bedrooms, and then another 36%. So almost 100% of our victims are found in either bedrooms or their egress path, right? Hallways, in alignment with doors, that kind of things as they're leaving. So who's finding our victims? 28% of the time, fire attack is finding our victims. And when that happens, there's a 51% survival rate. The other major portion, 60% of our victims are being found by primary search. Okay. And when that happens, there's a 49% survivability rate. So what is that? What do those percentages mean? What resonates with you?
You're still part of that primary search.
Yeah, so maybe we adjust our operations because we know 28% of the time we're going to encounter a victim. So what is our plan to remove a victim as well as extinguish the fire? And what about how we traditionally have our mindset based off of where we search? If we know fire attack is going to grab 28% of our population that's trapped, maybe I'm going to go to a targeted area like a bedroom as a search team instead of going to the main body of fire and working my way back. So maybe as a search team, I'm beelining to the hallway, to the bedrooms and starting the search because I know my fire attack is already accomplishing the process of going from the main body of fire back because that's their pathway of pulling hose lines. Okay, that's what resonates to me. We also know based off of the data that 66% of the time, if we can find our victims, once the air brakes hit in less than 2 minutes, they have a better survivability. 66% of the time, they're more survivable. As time increases, our survival rates decrease, right? So we know time is our enemy and speed is our weapon. So again, getting into the mindset, if time is our enemy and speed is our weapon, where are we going to go search? Because we're already against the clock when we arrive or when the tones go off. Okay, so let's look at conditions on arrival, right? Incipient room and content, multiple rooms fully involved. You can take it as, a 25%, 50%, 75%, and 100% involvement, however you want to look at it. But we know now, based off of 3,000 surveys that have almost been completed, that 46% of the time, the traditional fully involved still has survivable space. And why is that? Why is there survivable space when we arrive and we see over 3/4 of the building on fire? Compartmentalization, right? What's our national campaign doing? Close the door. Right? You hear it on commercials, you hear it on the radio. So maybe our mindset needs to change on how we articulate our arrival report. Because we know human nature when we say fully involved, Tyler was just talking about, you're kicking everybody down in gears. You're putting them back into first gear. Maybe the mindset is, hey, this might go defensive. Or hey, we're not gonna risk a lot to save a lot. Maybe because our mindset is there might not be any our survivability profile is lower. But in reality, we almost have a 50% survivability rate if we can get into searchable and survivable space of well-involved structures.
And he said it in the last session, but you key the mic to not to think, you key the mic to speak, right? And so just words matter. 46%, that blows me away. It's kind of funny, right? Because you're like, okay, clearly wasn't fully involved because we pulled half the time almost, we're pulling people out of that building. Who's been on some of these vacant fires lately? Vacants. So anyone on the Vietnamese fire, restaurant fire? So a park ranger pulled a guy out of there. He was up in the attic space where the fire started, where he was living, above the kitchen. So if you don't go in there with that mentality, and we were first truck, we searched that whole thing in what, 2 minutes, I think? 2 minutes, that thing was searched. There's nothing in it. Weird deal though, right? Probably wouldn't think to search up there. So just something to think about.
And then data is also driving home the fact that there's more than one victim. So studies are showing that single family residentials are having about 1.6 victims per residential structure, and almost 3 victims for every multi-residential structure. So this gets into when should we declare the primary over? How many search teams, speed, square footage, and searchable space is really going to drive home how many search teams and how you organize it, what the incident commander declares you as your unit, search one, or your engine identifier, or however they're going to break it up organizationally. Having a plan ahead of time as an organization is super important, because you find one victim, and I made the analogy of Time Magazine. You want to be on Time Magazine, but not everybody here might know what Time Magazine is. So you might want to be on Facebook or the internet as rescuing somebody, but the reality is, who knows the searchable space the best? The search team. So we should be handing those victims off and going back to where we had our search ended, so we can finish our search and have the continuity of search, again, based off of efficiency and speed, right? And then 10 rescues, 10 grabs a day is occurring nationally every day in the American Fire Service. And they believe the firefighter rescue survey founders believe that's super underreported, right? So we're reporting 10 a day, but there's a huge belief that it's way higher than this. And why do we think that? They don't fill out the survey. We're humble, right? What declares a rescue? What's the definition of a rescue? Rescue someone that's live, rescue someone and then they die. What is the definition of a rescue? So we're all having the same picture. So a lot of times people aren't reporting rescues that later turn into fatalities, right?
And the data you'll see that Captain Flint can speak to a little bit, a lot of them are fatality fires, right? There's some that, like, we had one pretty recently where it was obvious death and they left that person in place, and you're going to have that, right? So we don't want you to think that, oh yeah, you're looking for the pat on the back. This is all so that we can compile data to justify and identify training weaknesses or strong suits that we have, so we as an agency can be better. That's purely, correct me if I'm wrong, right? I mean, that's our intent in the search team, is to just be better at search and continue to come to work and expect people to be inside and just get better and better and better, so that when they are viable, we're getting them out and there's no ifs, ands, or buts, and there's no disputing it. So if you have anything like that you've been a part of, still remain humble and anonymous, but fill that stuff out.
And it's not about the pat in the back. It's about enforcing information or collecting information to enforce or drive operational priority, right? Fire attack, ventilation, and search as operational priorities. So what about our conditions when we enter the building and the survivability rate? So this data, this national data, really is almost exactly the same as your metro data. From 0 to low visibility, 72% of the time, there's survivable people in those buildings, right? So when you say 0 visibility to the incident commander, me on the outside, What does that make me as an incident commander want to do? Words matter. Okay. So think about some of your messaging. You can relay, hey, visibility is poor, but are you making progress? Is the line in place? Is there identified areas to be able to search? Do you have a good understanding of where you're at inside the building, good orientation? All that stuff through training, conversations, and experience is going to help allow that incident commander to allow you to be intent-based, right? I talked a little bit about this morning, is captains having good conversations with chief officers. Hey, chief, what's expected of me when you assign me search? In your brain, chief, what does that look like to you? Okay, hey, this is what it looks like to me. Are we on the same page? And then captains having conversations with firefighters and saying, hey, guys, girls, let's get around the coffee table. Let's talk about search. What does search mean to you? Okay, this is what it means to me. So now you have a continuity of understanding across all ranks and levels of your organization. But if you don't have those conversations, everybody tends to be a little bit on a different page based off of what is being communicated to them.
And from a truck team perspective too, if you need vertical vent, right? The hose line's going inside, it's staffed adequately with people that are moving that nozzle in. Hey, we need vertical vent, right? So if we communicate it well, then it's going to happen. He's going to make sure the IC, whether it be a captain or BC, should be going, okay, whoa, ventilation just moved up a little bit. Why? Because we want to see what the heck we're doing so we can search, whether it be horizontal, your hydraulic, whatever, vertical. We ask for it and we make sure that it's going up, it's going down so we can support it.
Visibility means ventilation.
Yeah.
If I go in there and go, I got zero visibility, then I need someone to start opening up the building and ventilate.
Yeah, exactly. If you ask me for vertical vent, you're getting. So.
Okay, so what about when search was initiated versus survivability rate? So pre-knockdown and post-knockdown. So pre-knockdown, and this drives home the priority-based assignment order. When are you assigning search? Based off of what are the variables at your incident and what is the priority in the incident commander's mind when they arrive, right? Based off the information of the bosses and the captains and their arrival and what they're functioning at. 65% survivability rate if search is initiated prior to knockdown being completed. 40% if search is initiated after knockdown has been declared on the radio. Pretty interesting statistics. 89% success rate when search is initiated prior to knockdown. How about when companies are assigned RIC based off of the priority order of when they're assigned search? Pre-RIC assignment, so search is ahead in the priority chain of RIC, you have a 66% survivable rate. RIC is established prior to search being initiated, 47%. 96% success rate when search is initiated prior to the RIC being assigned. Again, how are we assigning and organizing our incidents?
Hey, Matt.
Yes.
What are you considering a successful search? What is that percent?
Finding someone.
Of finding someone?
Yes.
Okay.
So time versus survivable rate. The big graph to make it concise, every 60 seconds our survivability rate goes down. Okay, very in alignment with cardiac arrest. For every minute, a dramatic decrease. Every minute in cardiac arrest, a dramatic decrease in survivability. Okay, so to drive this home, what about the idea of firefighter safety and line of duty deaths and injuries on the fire ground with search? So what's the data telling us? From 2008 to 2020, there was 12 line of duty deaths in the United States with companies performing search. Okay, 41% or 41 on-duty line of duty deaths in 2021. Of those 41, 3 line of duty deaths, 3 firefighters were performing search. And I'll get into the importance of that in a second. 0 line of duty deaths advancing hose lines, and 0 line of duty deaths performing ventilation. Interior line of duty deaths over the last 5 years, 1 per 100,000 fires. Civilian line of duty deaths, 8 per 1,000 firefighters. Significant difference, right? So what does this mean?
More aggressive.
Yeah, more aggressive, but we're still losing firefighters doing search. So to me, the importance is we only get 1 shot, right? As an incident commander, I don't ever want to experience a line of duty death, right? I don't think anybody here in this room wants to experience a line of duty death of someone they know. The unfortunate reality is in my organization, we've had 2 line of duty deaths on duty, both related to heart and lung, okay? And since I've been teaching search, I've had 2 people that I've taught search end up losing their lives. The Porterville incident in 2020. 2 months after they were at Fresno with us learning search operations or reinforcing some of the stuff that they do on a daily basis, they died in the library. Okay, so it's real to me. I become super passionate about it because it's a high risk thing to ask firefighters to do, even though we've only lost 12 or even 3, but how many is not enough, right? 1 is enough. So for me, driving home is we need to be proficient. We need to have really good communications. We have 1 opportunity for success of the civilians. We're putting people's lives in front of our own. So we need to know how to do our job to the best of our ability so we don't become a statistic. I can't impress the importance of that enough.
And subsequent to that photo, we had Porterville guys attend our classes thereafter. And you know, it's easy to complain here, but we're pretty well provisioned. You talk about the mental health aspects of the job and how we have assets here in this department. These Porterville guys, pretty rough deal. Small town, just trying to do their best. They live in that community. Most of us are kind of commuting in, right? So, and we still care and we still are very aggressive. So that stuff hits pretty hard, hits home for sure. So I'll touch on these ones. These are our definitions, Metro Fire specific out of the command book. The may split if need be, disregard that for, that's not part of the definition, but yes, it is an option. We'll get to that breakdown later when we're talking about the 3 types of searches. So you're oriented, you're split, and your VES or VEIS. We're going to clean that up for you. So a rapid but thorough search performed before or during fire suppression with a minimum of 2 members. Again, as you see fit, as conditions allow. If I can see, right, I might be, break off here, hold the door here, right? Weld and I are searching. We feel comfortable. We work together. We're on a truck. We know what we're doing. That's going to dictate how you operate. And as long as you get back together, then you're all good. Secondary search, a more thorough and methodical search conducted after the fire is under control and the greatest hazards have been controlled, preferably by a different team of firefighters that conducted the primary search and after ventilation operations have been initiated. So in my mind, and everyone has a different breakover, the fans are coming out. We're searching for bones. We're looking for, like Joel Greenfield earlier. Secondary, I'm looking for bones. Primary, I'm looking for bodies. That's, just, you got to make sense of what it is for you personally. What we'll touch on a little later is who's calling the primary, right? Kind of touched on it earlier. If I'm tasked with performing the primary search, you don't want to hear, how often do we hear 2 people say primary is complete? Happens all the time. So if you're team 2 or team 1, whoever you are, if I'm searching with Weld, I'm going to take part of the building. He's going to take part of the building with whatever our experience level is. I'm going to find him face to face. Hey, dude, I got the hallway with 3 bedrooms and a bathroom. I got the living room, kitchen, and dining room, and the fire's in the garage. Right on, man. Hey, you call it. Primary clear. You call it. Have the discussion there before you get on the radio and booger everything up for everybody else. Same with the secondary. I know on the truck it happens, right? We're tasked with doing the secondary. It's like, nope, time out. We just did the primary, right? So just catch those things. Mistakes happen. Command, go ahead and let's get another company in here to perform the secondary. Or hey, negative, I've heard this too. Someone's calling the primary, but I'm on the truck doing the primary and it wasn't my partner. Negative, the primary is not complete. We need more time. Hoarder conditions, whatever. Just explain what's going on. So command is like, okay, I'll give you some minutes, give you a few minutes to get collected. Any questions on these two? These are straight out of our command book. Pretty straightforward. And some will argue in our search team, you'll see in January, we'll see what makes the manual. Primary can still be somewhat systematic, right? The more experience you have doing this and the more training, then the more systematic you can be about it. That's building layout. That's, you know, smoke conditions, everything like that. Does anyone have any questions on that before we move on?
Is there any data on how many people are found during a secondary that were missed on the primary?
Yeah, there was. I want to say it was in there.
Probably not a good survivability rate, but
Flint might even know. Yeah, I mean, how many, we have it too, right? We've had secondaries where you can't make, usually it's in the fire room, right? So yeah, they're in the fire room and they're heavily buried and they weren't viable when we got there. But yeah, Flint, any of your data show on if we're finding victims on the secondary? It's usually in the fire room, correct?
Typically, yeah.
And I'm sure there's the off chance, Fitzy, that, yeah, oops, missed that one, missed the door. You know, oh, hey, they were in a Jack and Jill bathroom, missed that pocket door, whatever. But yeah.
And I bet the firefighter rescue survey, I can't remember all the data points. I mean, there's 150,000 data points in the firefighter rescue survey. So I'm just trying to glean the high level stuff for us. Otherwise we'd spend, which I would love, but we'd be spending, you know, I'd be up here living at Kraft's house for a couple weeks. The big thing with this is they're just definitions. And we get so wrapped around the axle sometimes with what words, how they're configured on a piece of paper and actually what they mean versus the reality of what we're doing on a daily basis. And these are just, and I think your Chief House said this morning, is they're just a starting off, a jumping off place for us to start getting on the same page and then using it as a guide, but not as an absolute, right? Policies, procedures, and again, I'm not part of your agency. I'm not advocating changing your policies and procedures or guidelines, but you have to understand that they're meant and written in a moment in time, in an administrative level, and they're used as a guide to jump off from, having a starting point, and then take some action, some leader's intent on how that guide was developed and written. Okay, I think the biggest thing, and we get wrapped around the axle when we talk about VIS, but we get wrapped around the axle about primary. What does a primary search mean? Well, I think we can all agree that it needs to be rapid and it needs to be thorough, and we need to be as efficient as possible because time matters, right? Time, the increase in time decreases the survivability rate of our victims. And then a secondary is, you know, again, a little bit more methodical, maybe after knockdown, maybe we're just making sure that the property is completely clear of anybody so we don't have our names in the newspaper the following day. So based off of all that information, based off of the knowns of the problems that we encounter on a national average basis for search, a good search will do a few things for you, right? A good search is going to reduce your disorientation. I'm a little bit older. I use the facilities a couple times a night, and sometimes I'm thirsty. If I go in my house and I turn on the master bedroom light, I'd probably not be living in the same bed as my wife on a daily basis. I'd probably be in one of my kids that are off at college's rooms, right? So I know how to get to the bathroom with my eyes closed in my house, right? I know how to navigate from my master bedroom all the way down the hallway into the kitchen and grab my glass of water with my eyes closed at 2 o'clock in the morning. How does that relate to us on the fire ground? Take into fact all the calls we run. And this goes back into the importance of knowing your zone. How many communities that you know of have only one structure as a very unique building, residential building that is unlike any others in that cul-de-sac or in that couple block radius. There's usually like 4 or 5 models of the same type, depending on the builder. So you go on say there's 4 types of buildings in a couple square block radius based off of the builder. You go in one house on a medical aid. You learn the floor plan. You understand the floor plan, how it's configured. Maybe you have a conversation with your crew. Hey, the garage means something based off of the livable space. Oh, did you notice that they remodeled? Okay. Oh, now you've got 25% of your community dialed in on how the building is made. Oh, you go maybe an hour later to another house on the same block, and it's a different building construction. Well, now you know 50% of that community, how it was built, what the layout is. So if we're in a residential structure, not these mega mansions, but a residential structure, you should have a good idea of the floor plan, right? So if you have a good idea of the floor plan, you're kind of in tune with the fire service, you've stayed engaged, you probably already doing this today. We just don't know it, right? We're probably already reducing our disorientation based off of our knowledge of building construction. A good search is going to allow you not to get lost. It's going to allow for a less duplication of efforts. What Tyler talked about, what you're going to do with your search teams based off of your square footage, and if you're going to introduce more search teams versus one search team. We know based off of the data, a good search is going to be quicker and more efficient, increasing our survivability. And most of the time, we're going to be able to locate the fire on the search, if not by fire attack, doing so quickly. And it all ties back into what I started off with as our mission. Okay, so let's talk about some search benchmarks, communication. It's big, it's everywhere. It's confusing. Sometimes we click the mic to think and we don't click the mic to talk, and we're trying to flush out our ideas in our head with the button pressed. It happens every time. How many times do we go to a structure fire and everybody's responding and saying smoke showing? Well, is that really needed information? We're going to a fire, we've been dispatched to a fire. Does every single company need to identify that smoke is showing? Maybe, maybe not. So I like to use the connect, convey, and confirm method, right? So engine 1 from the IC. If engine 1 just says, go ahead, well, how many companies do I have on the fire ground? Or was that Tyler? Was that someone else? It's engine 1, go ahead, right? Or, IC from engine 1. I used to say, go ahead. I was horrible at it. Well, how do they know they're connecting with the right person? And then how am I going to convey my message? Going back to my leader's intent, my intent-based leadership model, tell me what you want to do and let me support you. If you don't tell me what you want to do and I have to start trying to put the pieces together in the environment of you being in a dynamic environment, me looking at the back of an engine because I'm 5th, 6th, 7th due of an incident and I can't see the structure, I'm going to probably ask more questions and tie up more radio time, which inevitably increases the time for search. So convey the proper message and then just confirm that the message has been received the way you believe it's been received. Confirming searching on the first floor, all clear on the first floor, primary complete on the second floor, going to the first floor to finish. Those things, words actually do matter. And then what are your search assignments, right? How are you organizationally assigning search? Is it search 1? Is it search 2? Are you organizing it by truck 1 or truck 2? Or what's your cultural expectation of how search is assigned when there's more than one search team? And then we already kind of talked about this. When should you declare primary search is complete? This is where the interaction occurs.
Well, if there's multiple units, you got to connect and confirm that they are done, so the search is complete. And if it's just you, confirm with your partner or your company before you communicate that it's complete.
Cool. So you get assigned search. Boom, task oriented, right? Hey, we're going in to go search. The next company comes in. Hey, it's a big structure. I need you to search the second floor. You're on the first floor. you're on the second floor, go have it. Did you know that Pete got assigned search as a second company? Maybe, maybe not. The importance, the drive home message is you got to pay attention to the radio traffic is for everybody. It's not just for the company talking to the incident commander or the company talking to another company. It's for everybody. Okay, so how about when we arrive? What's our method when we arrive? How are we determining the search size up versus the fire attack or report on condition size up? Is there a difference? Again, this is kind of, I know it's after lunch. This is where we interact with each other. Yes, sir.
I think the first in engine or whoever's on scene first, giving a good, accurate arrival paints that picture of the incoming unit. So, we single story structure with fire showing the Alpha Bravo corner, whatever else we can tell those incoming units. So if we go in with our hose line, we're most likely going left. So search companies can get on scene and isolate or identify that the bedrooms are on the left. Well, they're probably going left too, versus if they're on the right, maybe they're going to split and go right. But us giving that good arrival, that's clear text where everybody understands exactly what that looks like, that helps on the way in. And most of our guys are pretty good sitting in the back seat. They're pulling up Google Maps or doing street views or looking at Redfin. So they're getting layouts of these houses that, while we're trying to map in the front seat, they're like, okay, so the 3 and 2, bedrooms to the left, always to the right, kitchen's behind the garage. We're like, holy crap. Okay, good to know. And then once we give that arrival, then those incoming units can put those pieces together. So although they know where the fire's at, they can also understand the building to know where the search is going to go.
Love it. Awesome. So difference between the first in company's report on conditions versus your size up as an assigned search crew. There should be a little bit of a difference, right? The first in company setting the incident up for success, maybe sending some arrival priorities, determining where the fire attack location is going to be, their entry point, all that kind of stuff. You get assigned search, you should be kind of thinking about, okay, where's the fire attack in relation to where I want to go? What's happening on the fire ground? I'm not only maybe going to do a 360, but I'm going to take in consideration a 720 because there's stuff above me and sometimes there's stuff below me. And again, where is the searchable space and where is the survivable space in comparison to the entire building? Okay. You arrive and you have an RP. What's your method, your process, your procedure of talking to that RP?
Are they human, species, incapacities,
cool,
gender, name, age, location?
Yeah. So why not have a systematic approach? Where's the fire? What's the best way to get there? It's their house, right? You're guessing if you can ask them and they can tell you, maybe that's going to help your decision making for a first due company. Is there anybody inside? Oh, yes, there is. Okay, where are they? And what's the best way to get there? Oh, they're in the bedrooms on the left side of the house. Do you take the RP with you or do you say, okay, thanks, and you go beat feet, task saturated down the little area of the yard to try to find the window? And then you say, oh no, there's 4 windows on the Bravo side. Now you have a 1 in 4 chance that if you just brought the RP with you, okay, which window is the bedroom that your loved one is in? Things to kind of think about.
And something worth noting, 105 crews were here earlier, and Sweeter's off 106. We had a VEIS down here, just down the street. So they had people already there that had taken 2 of the windows in the corner bedroom, right? So now, and that door is not, it was not controlled whatsoever. So they were taking a good feed of smoke, and you've got a downed victim, elderly, right there, moaning, moving around, walker bound, right? Super important, right? So we may not have a choice of if that flow path is already going before we get there, right? So even more time of the essence to get in there, get good intel, grab somebody and bring them with you.
Cool. Any questions so far? Comments? We're going to talk a little bit about some of the metro specific. I have some slides and we'll work on a few pictures of size ups and what happened at those fires. But I just want to finish off with a few of the data sets. So, and I talked a little bit earlier about the physiologic response to stress and why it matters, right? So based off of the firefighter rescue survey, we know that not every RP has the wherewithal to give the right information. So over the 20 or 2,000 plus, almost 3,000 surveys that have been submitted, 5% have had an RP saying everybody's out, and there's still civilians inside those structures. So 5% of the time the RP is wrong. 28% of the time there's no report of any victim inside. And this is in alignment with some of your survey data that you guys have been collecting for the last couple years.
Do you want to share, Flint, since you're here? Do you want to quickly share some of that, or we have some of it written down? But what we're pretty much on the national average, Metro Fire, but what we are high on, right? You could
Yeah, so it was kind of the big thing for us with building this sort of culture thing was we wanted numbers. The big thing for us was we wanted numbers that were relative to our district and our organization. So when you're reading the manual, this is from our fires. The cool thing is that over the course of how many ever years, we got a bunch of responses, and I had to kind of pry them out of people's hands because they didn't want to, be involved, or they didn't want to be talked to or whatever. And that was fine. So sent out a bunch of emails, got some pretty good results. Kraft kind of already mentioned the big one for us was that, 38 or 39% of the time we're showing up to these fires with no reports of victims, yet we're pulling victims out. I thought that was a huge number. And then the other numbers that I really liked that we came across were when we decided how we were searching, whether it was a split search, VES, oriented search, or whatever, to see the percentage breakdown on those. And then, what these were, most of them were coming out of residentials, a few out of some vacants, but it wasn't a vacant building. It was labeled that. So kind of like Kraft talked about, is the main thing we don't want to is reports of vacant building. Well, it might be, it's abandoned for sure, but we don't know that it's vacant. So when we say reports of everyone out, vacant building, family states, everyone's out, it really slows that tempo down. When the question I always ask people is like, okay, if we show up and we have reports of a victim, what changes about our search? And the answer should be nothing. It should be we're going into search aggressively for that person that was reported in there or not in there. Because if you're going to tell me you're going to change something when we don't have a known victim with a known location, then maybe we're not searching properly. So getting the numbers and then seeing that they're consistent across the nation was pretty cool. And then my goal eventually is to make this a live document where we can just keep adding our numbers to it. I know Oklahoma City now has their own firefighter rescue survey that's within their agency. And I wanted to get more questions out there so we can narrow it down in times and all that kind of stuff, but we're getting there. And so it's just really cool to get people talking about it, opening up. And the basis for this was how many people needed firefighter help to be removed from the building, whether it was a confirmed fatality, a balcony pick, a working attic fire where they're sleeping inside. If we had to help them out of their house, we counted it because were the reasons they made it out. Or, if we would have been 2 minutes earlier, maybe they were a viable victim. So
absolutely. Good stuff, man. Thank you. So yeah, 28% of the time nationally, no reports of any victims, 38% inside Metro, no reports of victims, and there's actual victims. And then vacant dwellings is a super interesting, the pandemic has changed a lot of stuff. We have more vacant buildings, but 75 injuries last year and 75 fatalities and 200 injuries in vacant buildings from civilians. So some of our determinants are our traditional kind of mindset of, oh, is there cars in the driveway? What's the property look like? Time of day. Well, let's look at that in the realism of when these occupancies are occupied, right? So if we look at just cars in the driveway, let's look at today's workforce. How much of our workforce is actually commuting to work anymore? Okay, it's slowly matriculating back to in-person work, but a lot of companies have created the mindset, hey, we're more efficient, we're more productive, we're making more money, we'll just buy you a computer, you can work at home. Okay, a large portion of our community's bike or take public transit to work now. Fuel costs are through the roof. So people are less likely to even want to get in their car and drive. We know that based off of buildings that are because we have reduced amount of vehicles in the household, a lot of vehicles are in the garage. So just not having a vehicle in the house or in the driveway really doesn't mean anything anymore, right? And time of day, what is about time of day? Well, a third of the workforce works in graveyard shift. So does a no car in the driveway in the daytime, the old adage of, oh, nobody must be home. Well, we know now a third of the workforce is working the graveyard. A large portion of society is working at home. Cars in the driveways are not a very good determinant. We also know that about 6% of today's population is under the age of 5 through census data. And then again, through some of the data diving, 18 out of 24 hours a day, bedrooms are being occupied. So this daytime versus nighttime versus car in the driveway analogy may not be working for us anymore as a determination point if we should search or not. Okay. Some of the things I walked through this already about asking questions, so I'm going to skip that. Let's talk about the stress-induced response. Okay. Not to confuse exercise-induced stress. Okay. Exercise, I normally get my heart rate above 150 and I can still function fine. I spike my heart rate sometimes in the 190s and I can still think. Okay. I have endorphins running. I'm good. I'm out of breath. I can articulate, I can stop, and I can think. The physiology of stress, when you hit a fight or flight response moment in time, my house is on fire, my baby is missing, my loved one, my life is inside the building that's on fire, you have a physiological response to stress. And what happens when your heart rate gets above 150 and you have a stress-induced response, you start to shut down. Okay, your cognitive brain goes behind and your lizard brain comes in front. So you have a very difficult time adding simple math. 2 + 2 becomes very difficult for you to figure out that it's 4. Okay. Your field of vision starts to narrow. You become tunneled in on hyper-focused on something in front of you. Your hearing starts to go. You have auditory exclusion. What happened in Polk County? 5 times in the first minute, dispatch told the responding units there was a victim in the house. The first arriving company never even remembered that. Hey, can you have the RP meet us out in the front? Okay. We start to have irrational thought. That's why now it's starting to come into context of 5% of the time. Hey, yeah, everyone's out. Well, they have irrational thinking going on. I have some of these, I've worked with some of these, the temporary amnesia. You go to an incident and you work an incident and it doesn't really go well. Everybody goes home and then you come back 2 days later, man, that was the best thing we ever did. We had the best time. We did everything perfect. Think about the stress response to people. They have temporary amnesia. They can't remember 5 minutes ago, let alone 30 seconds ago, because they're so hyper-focused on their house being on fire. Their blood starts to shunt. Right? So it starts to shunt for survival to kick in. So your major muscle groups get the amount of blood that it needs to function. So you become stronger, but we know the other things are causing us to become dumber. So if we know that an individual that's whole life is flashing in front of their eyes and they have this stress-induced response, they may not be the most reliable reporting party. Okay? Just something to think about. Okay, so if we kind of put that into context, how about the response to positive versus negative reports, right? Someone says, hey, my loved one's inside. Dispatch says, reports of people trapped. That should be repeated on the radio. Acknowledge, Battalion 1 acknowledges people trapped, or first 2 companies acknowledge people trapped. What about if dispatch says, reports that nobody inside? Maybe we change our process to say we acknowledge it, but we don't repeat it. Because back to what the captain was just saying, should we change our methods based off of factual or maybe not so factual information upon arrival? Just something to think about.
I got a question on
Yeah.
So one of the percentage numbers that you had up there, going back to that reported victims out, that only 5% of the time, that was inaccurate. So that's then saying 95% of the time that is accurate.
Right.
So that would then play into how you take your calculated risk.
Yeah.
So 95 times out of 100, that you take that to the bank every time. So
yeah, it's all how you want to interpret and look at the data, right? Yes, 5% of the time they're inaccurate. Well, 95% of the time it is accurate. But in my brain, 5% of the time, there's a 5% chance of a survivable person inside a building. Maybe we operate the exact same way as if we knew nobody, we didn't know if someone was in there or not. Again, it really bases on your decision making and how your rationale as far as your priority. You have a 3/4 of the building on fire. Maybe your survivability profile is limited. Maybe your resources are limited. Okay, then maybe 95% means something. But maybe you have a room and contents fire or 50%, what you might think is 50% involvement, and there's searchable or survivable space because of, we know the fact of the closing the door campaign. We know that based off of the information, there's a ton of options for us to potentially save savable lives. Maybe we're using that data for our advantage to help us decide to go in and search. Does that help?
yeah, I don't think I'm not trying to say that you're not going into search, but you're taking in other risk factors.
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And I think about it too, Keebs, if I'm going above ground, right? I'm on the 2nd floor. We're searching 21 not long ago. And your foot's going through the floor because you're still sounding and doing everything right, and stuff still goes wrong, right? So it really is we want to continue at Metro to empower the firefighters, the engineers, captains to make sound decisions based on your training, your gear, and your experience level, your comfort level, to lean it out there for the savable, risk a lot, savable lives type of deal. Still stands, right? And you're absolutely right. Like I see what you're saying. You're saying that
again, I think, yeah, absolutely. You risk a lot to save a lot. But like that one stat in itself is saying 95% of the time, if a homeowner or whoever it is comes out and says, hey, everybody's out, 95% of the time, that's accurate. So when we start talking risk reward here, like, okay, if it was the opposite, like, hey, 95% of the time that guy is totally full of it. Yeah, well, then we probably should risk a lot to go search that.
And
that's all I'm saying.
Totally. And when I go back to some of these weird ones I've been on, one with Flint and them recently, where you've got the guy out front standing there like this, not saying anything, and we drag a lady out of a pile of clothing who lit her room on fire, unconscious now. And I totally get it. It's like the devil's advocate, man. So
totally,
it is like we have to be, there's a lot of concern for, like, you got a medic company out there. They're maybe not as experienced. They're charging into a bad spot, right? That's the biggest worry, I think, in our agency. So by no stretch are we preaching that gospel, but you got to make the call. If it's the guy and he's, the homeless guy or something, someone that's maybe psych deal, maybe we're not taking their word for it on this one. But if it's you're out in Fair Oaks and the dad's out and he's like, hey, my wife's here, my kid's here, we live here, and everyone's out, totally, right? It's a different, like, we could what if it
context matters
all day long. But
yes, sir.
And I think to that point, Kraft, like that grab that Bev had over there off of Palm, when we showed up, there was a guy on the front lawn. It was a vacant house. He said nobody was in there. I chose not to say that on the radio. So I started playing this back in my head. We go in there. We got a working fire. The rest of the company goes in, finds this victim in the hallway, pull him out. It was a weird deal. It was an arson. The guy got shot and burned, whatever. But you start thinking, like, if I would have just played it back, I didn't. But if I would have said, hey, reports of nobody inside, now that firefighter goes to grab that victim, and he already said it didn't feel like a victim. He's like, I thought it was a roll of clothes, so I had to pull his face up to mine. I'm like, oh no, that's a victim. Versus now in my head, I heard nobody inside, so now we pass on that, or we stepped on it. It's like, no, that was just clothes. I think if that mental, the report of nobody inside makes you think there's nobody inside. So when you do grab something or feel something, it might not resonate with your head that that's an actual thing or person.
Yeah,
And so I think-
100%.
But, yeah.
And by no means am I advocating being arbitrarily aggressive, meaning I'm not going to take any information. I'm just going to go in, dive in, head first, jump in the deep end, right? I'm a huge advocate of being intellectually aggressive, meaning taking the information, processing as much information in as quick amount of time as you can based off of all the variables in the context in the environment that you are sitting in and making a rash, good decision. I think I already talked about it earlier, is we pride ourselves in hiring the best and the brightest. So we should be encouraging the best and the brightest to make good sound, have good sound, quick decision-making processes.
Like it.
Cool. So just a quick recap on size up. Maybe think of a 720 versus a 360. We kind of talked about that. Speed, square footage, and searchable space is huge as far as making your determination of how many search teams, where to search, how to search, when to search. Looking for targets of opportunity. We're going to look at a few pictures here and kind of identify some targets of opportunity. You might realize that the front door might not be your best option. Going to the Charlie side, slider inside the house because the fire attack team is having some difficulty moving the hose, or it's a pinch down doorway with a steep stairs to get to the front door, and there's multiple companies trying to get into the front door, and you're assigned search. Maybe looking for another opportunity is going to be better for you. We know based on the national data, 6 firefighters in 6 minutes, 80% survivability rate. So maybe how we arrive and our actions on arrival matters. First in company maybe going in dry more times than not. Second in company maybe giving tank water and having maybe the third due company get a supply and pump the hydrant might be an option based off of your response area. Again, time, discussion, training, all should help make those decisions for you. And then remember, it's a respiratory issue. It's not a fire insult issue. So having a 30-second plan or 3-second, 30-second, and a 60-second plan actually matters. What can I do right now when I find a victim? Shut the door or drag them out in 3 seconds? Because I know they have a respiratory problem. So I need to get them to air or isolate the bad air. 30 seconds might mean dragging them into a room, closing the door and opening the window. And then your 60-second plan might be starting to get on the radio and calling for help. And having that kind of ingrained in your muscle memory so you can make those decisions instead of, oh, shoot, when do I have to get on the radio? What do I do? Am I going to drag them out the way I came in? Am I just going to get them to the window? When do I need to get the medic unit there and help? And all that kind of stuff should come into your decision-making process, knowing that the majority of our fire victims have a respiratory issue, not a fire issue. Okay, so I think I'll let Tyler kind of key in on, these are some fires that you guys have had. He gave them to me. I threw them up on the slides just to have some discussion as far as your search size up goes.
Someone shoot me an arrival and tell me where you're thinking about stretching the line and anchoring a search. Somebody.
This is where we
Single
have a
story
discussion.
house, black smoke from the Charlie side. Initiating on this fire attack, I have priority next to water supply, take command. My big priority on this is getting a 360s and an outside in fire to help dictate where my nozzle is going to go to put the fire out. Now going in, search, we're going garage to kitchen, maybe some bedrooms on that Charlie Delta corner, or maybe further behind the kitchen on the back Charlie side. So our biggest thing is getting water in the right place and then getting a layout and communicating that when I can.
Anyone else? A little bit of a doozy. This was an Antelope not too long ago. See, what do you guys notice on the driveway? You see that water running? So the homeowner made a heck of a push down the hallway and was eating it pretty bad. And then getting transported smoke inhalation. So the kitchen's actually on the right in the back. You go in the front door, you hook a left down the hallway and make the bedrooms. It was a bedroom fire that was blowing out of both windows on the corner. Crew opted to go down the side yard, hit it, and come in through the Charlie. Hey, right, wrong, and different, all good. Just think about what it does for your search. Do I have a better layout going in the alpha side? I'm probably going to see some fresh air getting drawn in, right? Taking me right to the promised land if I'm on the nozzle. So that's a good place to be. And it's not right or wrong, right? It's just, we're just spitballing here. I'm trying to stick it to incidents I have good knowledge on. So you're not right, wrong, indifferent. You'd search off the hose line, right? For me, as the truck firefighter, we went down the hallway, had pretty good visibility. And then for you on the nozzle, junior members, you've got the nozzle in your hand, right? If you come in that hallway, get in that bedroom, knock it down, we can hydraulically vent. That's going to make things better. Tile roof, big pain in the butt, right? Next one. This one's in 32s. What would be, let's say this is nighttime now, or, definitely looking a lot bigger at night. You show up to this thing, where's your search priority right here, right now? Bedrooms above the garage? Absolutely. This was an invalid in his living room. Fire door to the garage held really well, and the inside of the house was very well off. And the neighbor was able to get this guy out before we got there. But same thing applies. We got to get in, primary this. Flint?
Something that happened on this fire that I'd never heard of, never even processed. When that fire started, it tripped the breaker for the house, and the power went out, and he couldn't get out of his recliner chair that has laid all the way flat.
Yep.
So he was stuck in that chair, and although he could walk with the walker, he couldn't even get out. So the neighbor came and scooped him up out of the chair. Like, I'd never even considered that being an option. That power goes out in your mechanical bed or recliner or whatever.
Had he not been able to call his neighbor, and the neighbor know, I got an old neighbor in this house, nice big old house in Fair Oaks. Fatality fire potentially, right?
It's the one with the built-out basement, right?
I mean, a lot of these in Fair Oaks are walkout basement, right? And so we need to be sounding, right? We need to be heads up on it. Great. This one, our neighbors to the east. Where's your priority for search? Above that garage. And what are we doing when we make that bedroom? Sounding that floor, absolutely.
So we'll just watch the first few moments of this incident, look at the fire conditions upon arrival, look at it from the perspective of being a site search.
Not my place, any place.
Dylan, we got with you. I took your time. Okay. I need manpower. Bobby, what do you got?
So what do we see? Bottleneck at the front door. So what about survivability and searchable space? So where are we going? You're a site search, where are you going? Find another entrance. Cool. And there's a bunch of options, right? You can find the back door, you can enter a window and start your search, right? We're going to skip this. So a couple things to just considerations on the search plan, right? Having a plan is head and shoulders going to be way beneficial, more beneficial than not having a plan and trying to figure it out when you get there, right? So understanding that the roles, the assignments, really the assignments don't change, the roles do. And what I mean by that is, say you're a 2-person search crew or you're a truck and you haven't split and you're a 4-person search crew, understanding that the roles stay the same, it doesn't matter, being an advocate of it not mattering of who goes in first, but understanding each other's roles. And this gets super detailed when we get into VES, and not waiting, if you're masked up first, and just because you're the officer, maybe considering not waiting for your firefighter to mask up. And maybe your firefighter becomes the orienting member on the windowsill and you're the search member. It's a little non-traditional, but again, if time is our enemy and speed is our weapon, maybe that's our best option at the moment in time. I'm going to talk briefly about oriented split and VEIS. You all are going to be diving into this deep when you do your hands-on training, I think this summer, but I'm just going to talk about the high-level pieces of those 3 types of searches. These are recommended. These are NFPA mentioned in 1670. They are recommended in state fire training's curriculum as 3 different methods of search. So I already briefed on this. Searcher and the oriented member, the roles don't change, the positions do. It's all based off of speed and efficiency. You want to try to complete every room you choose to search and not get half a room and then get that, you know, what do I say? My son has, I lost my train of thought, but the shiny object syndrome, right? Oh, I hear maybe the person's down here and you're already searching a room. Maybe you need to finish your search and allow the second search team to search it. Understanding that doors matter, inward and outward matter, and understand that victims can be found behind doors, right? Over 200 searches at FDIC this last year, and only 5 people found the victim behind the door. Okay, pretty interesting data. If you're doing your traditional right or left hand, ensure that you stay oriented to the building. Don't go across country if you don't know what you're doing. And it's really the little things or the efficiency that matters on your success or unsuccess of a search. We'll watch a video on the communication plan. This is an actual search and rescue of a victim. We'll take a look at the plan, how they communicated and how they acted, and then we'll just talk about it.
Units responding, medic engine 223 is on scene, establishing Tijuana command. Got a single-story, single-family dwelling. Heavy smoke coming from, heavy smoke and fire coming from the front door. Got AMR on scene. Break, medic engine 222, can you go around the block and lay a line into me? Between us and, is the down line?
I copy, I see that line. All units be advised you need to enter this from the north to the south. So we have power lines down.
Possibly one person trapped in the back of the house. Okay. Further witnesses here, and there's got power lines and there's bars. Okay.
Further units from Tijuana IC 223. I got reports of a trapped subject to the back of the house. I've got one attack line pulled to the front door right now. We're going to make entry to perform a rescue. Break truck 221 from Tijuana IC. You're going to be my ventilation. I want you to the roof. Vertical ventilation. We have no problem with forcible entry in the front door right now.
Copy, we'll go straight to the roof then. Medic engine 229 stage.
Keep going, Mike.
All right. So what are some things that kind of jumped out at you in this video?
Said no forcible entry issues, but would it maybe mention all the bars in the windows?
Okay.
Seems like kind of an important thing to relay to everybody.
Yeah.
Especially if the room that's trapped, like when reports the guy trapped, there's bars in the window.
Cool. What else?
Did he re-report to, from AMR, there's power lines down, or I don't remember if that was.
Yeah, I think that was dispatch saying, and then they rerouted everybody.
Second engine said, hey, between the power line down.
Cool.
What about when you find the victim? Said, hey, Mike, hey, Joe, hey, victim, victim, victim. That's gonna perk your ears up. You're still fighting the fire, but hey, you got a victim over there. I'm gonna give you a hand. What could you do to help that captain, right? If he's grabbed the feet or you grab the feet, all I want, if I've got my hands on a victim, wrap and tap. Come this way, come this way, come this way, come to me, come to me. If I need your help, I'll let you know. I don't need you pushing while I'm pulling. It's not helping me at all, right? So those are the kinds of things we'll be laying out on hands-on basis, videos, photos, this summer later on with the manual.
So what did the AMR supervisor say to him? Victims in the back, right? So he goes to the back, and what do you see? The yard shark cage, some bars on the windows on the Delta side. He comes back to the front door. The front door is wide open. He communicates, hey, we have no forcible entry challenge from the front. He's going to make a conscious decision that that's the best way for them to go in and start the search, right? He tries to get that firefighter to push into the front door a little bit while he's getting his gear on. Maybe a little bit of leader's intent stuff prior to incidents like that might be beneficial for that team. But then they get inside, the nozzle firefighter starts knocking down the fire. And what does he do? Hey, I'm going to bump in front of you. He knows there's a victim. How big's that house? Small. Super small, right? So super easy to kind of, red lights all turned on. Does that mean your station's getting a call?
They're getting an extrication job.
Oh, that's what the red lights mean?
No, the red lights always come on.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, right on. Cool. He finds the victim. Maybe a little bit better communication would have been victim, 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 and initially, and then that firefighter, he's like, hey, I need some help. And they grab him and yard him out. What about the communication on the radio?
He was the IC and the rescue and.
Yeah, he was everything, man. They were limited resources, right? But what do you think about him not relaying the message that they found the victim while the victim's inside the building? It's absolutely fine.
Hustling.
Right. Because what is going to be the best chance of survivability? Bring him outside. Okay, as an IC man, let me figure it out as you're yarding him out onto the yard, and I'll get you some help. Okay. That's that 3-second, 30-second, 60-second plan stuff that I talked about earlier. So where do we search first? We kind of already hit this, right? So the front door may not be our best option. So we might have to look for some other options based off of reports on conditions, companies working, searchable, survivable space. Now we're just getting into the tactic mode of maybe VEIS, maybe going in the Charlie side, maybe finding another avenue to get in quickly so we can provide the best possible chance for our victims. So when we make entry, a couple of things, the fire service is steeped in tradition of acronyms. So here's another set of acronyms for you. Life, fire, layout. What are we doing when we get inside the building? We're looking for life, right? We're getting our head as low as we can below the smoke layer. We do nothing if I can see my feet, but I'm having some difficulty seeing my feet because maybe my layout is going to be way better acclimated if I get my head to the floor, right? Maybe I'm going to hold my breath so I can listen to, is there moaning going on? Is the crackling of the fire? Is there, what can I hear based off of just holding my breath for a minute? And then how am I sweeping for my victims? We talked a little bit earlier, tools don't have feelings, but your hands do. So maybe using your hands might be a good idea. And then doing a fire, live fire or location. Where's the fire? Where's the flow path going? Where's it sucking in? Maybe that's going to lead me to the main body of fire. Do I see a glow? Do I hear crackling? And what is occurring? Maybe what is burning by what am I listening to? And then the layout, right? So you should already have a good layout picture in your brain as you're walking up to the structure, but just verify it. Get your head low. Okay, where's the stairs on a 2-story house? I'm going to beat feet to those stairs and get up into the hallway into the bedroom.
And this is just something to consider, right? You force the door, maybe instead of just jamming it shut with your Halligan, you give the quick look, you watch where the fresh air is taking you. Nothing better than being the search man and going to see the fire, searching around and I can bring the nozzleman right to it, right?
Cool. Here's just a quick picture of some search techniques, okay? Think about, let's just talk about the bed. What, if a victim is on a bed, what else is on the bed? Sheets. So why wouldn't we just wrap the victim in those sheets and pull on the sheet and yard the victim out? How about how are we going to search a bed? How about pull up on the sheets and see if there's a weight on top of the sheets, right? Might be a very quick way to ascertain if there's a victim on it. Okay. How about clothes? How do we sift through piles of clothes that we can't discern between clutter and clothes? Again, we kind of teach our people to do this. How about pick up the clothes? And what happens when a paperweight is in those clothes? Oh, I got a victim. I found a victim very quick. Okay. And then lastly, look at the cribs. How are cribs configured? For the parents to be able to work with the child in the crib. So they're above the ground. Where's our superheated and smoke conditions? Above that horizontal plane of that 3-foot level, maybe sometimes. So maybe instead of getting in the crib and putting our hands all over the crib, maybe we pull the crib to the floor. And now we have that baby in a survivable space and we can feel for the baby a little bit better, okay? A lot of times in zero visibility, what does a crib feel like if you're doing this? A piece of furniture, cabinet, right? So pushing on the piece of furniture matters. Oh shit, that's a crib. Okay, pull the crib towards you, right? Just a few things to think about. All right, I'm gonna talk about the oriented, the split, and VEIS, and then we'll be done for the day, okay? I think I got about 10 minutes to try to get through all three, so I apologize if
We're going to clean all this up as an agency. You're going to have a manual, metro specific. Don't worry. And we'll be having all the 2 days data compiled for you to access at your leisure. So don't feel like you're missing anything.
Cool. Oriented search has its time and its place. Okay, there's some advantages and disadvantages to all three types of those search. Oriented search is probably the safest type of search for us firefighters because we have an orienting member that's always either on a wall or understanding our path of egress. That's the kind of the thing to think about. The oriented search, the advantages is, right, it increases the safety of our crew, but it also, the disadvantages is it decreases our efficiency because it makes us more time dependent to do. The oriented search allows to find victims that maybe hose lines aren't in place yet, visibility is super low to zero, maybe you don't have a good floor plan or building footprint, and maybe your experience level of your company isn't as at a high level as some of maybe your more experienced firefighters. So an oriented, it's kind of that traditional picture model of someone maybe in the hallway directing a couple searchers in bedrooms using maybe a thermal imager and or voice and sound contact. The big thing with the oriented search is there's some responsibility for the searcher. What is that? The communication piece, okay? If the searcher can't hear the orienting member, there's a problem, okay? You've gone too far. So you have your aggressive firefighters that just want to get in and get after it, and now they're maybe into a Jack and Jill bathroom, and now the oriented member can't hear each other anymore. So you have to have a method and a plan on how far you're going to release your searcher as an orienting member. Can you see him? Can you hear him? Can you talk to them? Have voice contact? That oriented person has some responsibility as well. They should really be thinking in the next, right? Where am I going to direct my searchers next? I'm in the hallway, they're out searching. I'm not just going to sit or kneel on the ground and wait for them. I'm going to maybe push down the hallway, open another door, look to see where a searchable space is. So when that firefighter comes out, I'm directing them right away. They're also responsible for situational awareness, looking for hazards, exits, victims, doing some stuff on their own as well. Okay. Oriented search is really specific to residential fire occupancies, but you can really kind of morph it into all types of occupancies. It's great for working off of hallways. It's great for working off of stairwells as well, okay? Things to think about when the oriented search should be applied. Unfavorable conditions. Water isn't on the fire yet. Visibility is super low or zero. You have the potential to get lost. You have the potential to get disoriented. Maybe the experience level of your members isn't as high level as some of your more experienced level. Perfect option for a method or a tactic for search. Okay. I talked about that. I'm going to breeze through a couple of these slides. I talked about the responsibilities of the oriented member and the searcher already, so I'm going to skip that. Here's just a couple slides on pictures of an oriented type of a search. Maybe what's a problem with that top slide? Yeah, tools don't have feelings, your hands do, so maybe switch that tool into the right hand to use it off the wall, and now you're staying oriented and you're using your hands to search. Okay. I'm going to skip that. We're kind of running a little bit out of time. Well, I already talked a little bit about that. So your radio report, we've already kind of talked about when that radio report should occur. It's having that 3, 30, and 60-second process and maybe delaying that radio traffic till the person's in good air. Okay. I love to steal Tyler's words is when webbing comes out or stuff just gets really weird. So really try to learn how to do an oriented search without the use of webbing or host straps or tools. Maybe use some of the technology that we have, maybe use some understanding of building construction and building footprints, okay? Split search. So split search is a faster, more efficient way to search. It has the most, based off of the data on the firefighter rescue survey, 41% survival rate if companies are using the split search method, okay? But it takes practice, it takes favorable conditions, it takes experience. It should not be skipped on, we're only an agency that does split search, right? There's a time and place for everything.
And with that, we didn't touch on it. We will, Joe, on the last one. For some of you that are looking for ideas on that, if I'm usually going to be doing a split search, right? It's that experience and the conditions. If I've got a smoke plane halfway, that to me is a favorable condition, right? I've got visibility. I can get low and aggressive. I can make doors down the hallway. So it's totally up to you, but what's typically across from a door when we open it and go in? A window. Get in, close the door, open the window, clear the blinds, search the room, smoke's leaving the room, come back out, close the door, swipe with your hand if you want. That's an indicator that you know that I've searched it. Where I worked for a long time, boom, I'm down the hallway, I'm continuing my search down the bed for the bedrooms, right? So that is a lot of what you're gonna see at Metro when the conditions are favorable and it makes sense. So I think we cleaned that up. Cool. We missed on the last one.
Yeah, some things have to be, some variables have to be in place, right? Fire attack, the line is having some favorable or some progress to get water on the fire. Maybe that's a benchmark in your organization, articulating water on the fire versus knockdown. Conditions you can see, you have some good orientation ability, and then experience is a big factor. Just a pictorial of a split search, two members going in and doing independent search. The biggest thing to think about is a split search does not occur with one firefighter on the first floor and one firefighter on the second floor. Because what has to be in place with a split search? Good, communication. Cool, so VEIS, your agency has a definition. I know you're working on your definition. I wrote this out of your command doctrine manual, the first sentence. The biggest thing with VEIS, right? It can be this mindset of it's a high risk, but it can be a high reward type of operation. I look at VEIS as just another tactic, just another method of search, okay? We kind of train to go in the building, go in the room and immediately try to isolate our conditions, right? That's what we're trying to do. We want to isolate our conditions by closing the door. But what's our plan when that door can't close, right? There's a company that was in here this morning that was talking about a VEIS operation where the walker was in the way of the door and they had some difficulty closing and isolating, compartmentalizing the atmosphere. So having a plan when that might not go as well as what we do in our towers, right, in our training environment. And then maybe based off of the information that we have, maybe the hook and look procedure gets introduced, because we know 80 some odd % of our victims are either in bedrooms or hallways. Taking a quick look in the hallway before you close the door might be a good option. We know 80% in the hallways and bedrooms. We know that, geez, I just lost my train of thought again. I'm getting old. But we also know that we can probably visualize really quickly, close the door, isolate it, and now we're going to search the room. But we're also kind of thinking in that next, okay, where am I going to maybe search next?
All comes down to favorable conditions. If I come in through a window, why am I doing that? Probably because the 90% alpha side that's blowing fire out, or there's 10 people stacked at the door. I'm saying, you know what? Bypassing you, gonna go for the more bang for my buck, go hit these bedrooms, right? If I pop in a bedroom window and its conditions are favorable, I can anchor my search off of that room, understanding that I'm oriented and I can get back to that room. It's twofold. I can pull a victim into that room as a safe refuge versus dragging them through the IDLH and the thermal assault, and getting tied up with a hose line and multiple people coming in another way. Or it's just a quick peek in the hallway, close the door, I'm out the window, and I bop to the next window and I VES that window, right? So no one's telling you you've got to do one thing or another. We're going to paint the super clear with all of our training. We're going to do hands-on so that you don't feel like you're flying blind. And we also don't want the ladder of every fire, everyone's taking every window. Like we don't, it's not a, right. We're going to be tacticians and we're going to do things when they are warranted. So
we're going to watch one VIS and then I have one slide and then we'll be done for the day.
Cool.
Josh, watch out.
Confirmation inside, Scott.
Guys in the window! Come here! Come to us! Come to us! Come to the light! Put your hands in the light!
Arriving on the scene. Heavy fire on the alpha side. Small block structure building. Stretching 150 for attack.
Hey, we need a crowbar! Back door! Back door! We can't get the window out. Someone's inside. All the way back. Here. Hey, back. Come on, Lance. Come on, there you go. Come on. Watch the poker. Give us some light. You good, partner? Where's the nearest ambulance?
They're coming.
Come on, Lance. You good? Stand. Right here. Right here. Oh, watch out. Watch out. You all right, bro? You all right, bro? We got it. Go. All right, so go down. I got her. I got her.
Here, I got him. Grab one. Come on.
So think about kind of your search size up on what you saw in the video. How much fire involvement on that structure? Quite a bit, right? And then the police officers do what they do, right? The majority of the rescues in the American Fire Service are done by police officers, whether we like it or not, or initiate it with police officers. So they start opening the window, uncontrolled environment. What did we see smoke wise? What was our conditions? It's purely what? An inlet, right? It was pulling oxygen to the main body of fire, right? Nasty brown smoke, right? And then before they were able to get the window open, we had vent point ignition. What does that mean? Yeah. Okay. How about their survivability profile? Why? Just the smoke escaping the building. But what about those that don't know about vent point ignition? And maybe their survivability profile for them might not be as good or favorable as all of us in the classroom looking at the video, right? So educating our members on fire behavior is really, really important, right? And then what about when the firefighter goes in the window? What happens pretty quick? Yeah, they find her, put her out. But what do you think, what can we deduce happened inside that room based off of the conditions? Yeah, they isolate at the door, right? And then this video kind of just drives home that it's not always the way we do it in training for VES, okay? Sometimes you're gonna have a problem isolating the door. Sometimes your conditions aren't gonna be super favorable. Sometimes you might have that vent point ignition. This had some success because you still heard the victim yell and help me, right? So just a few things to think about. I'm going to skip all these because we talked about these already and I want to get everybody out of here. So just some ideas to maybe thinking about the mindset of not getting so worried about the terminology of VEIS as it is. Maybe it's a search option. It's a search tactic, just like oriented search and split search. And maybe using it to our advantage on what is the best way to get to these victims to increase their survivability rate, okay? Just maybe thinking about what can we use to get into windows, stuff around the yard can be used. And then laddering options, right? Where do we place our ladders? How many hours of ladders are in Firefighter 1 Academy? Like 32 hours is advocated, right? So we should be pretty proficient with our ladder operations.
Are we taking windows with ladders?
Oh, good point.
Let's not. Why? Right? We're already starting that thing, giving it what it wants. I'd rather be suited and booted, ready to go, quickly masked up with my gloves on. If you're into that, if you get to that, that should be a goal, just to at least try it. That way we can get in there, we take the window, we control the environment. Everything we do in the fire service, right? From a medical to a fire, we're coming in and taking control. I'm going to make that victim do what I need him to do to get him out. And I'm going to be proficient with my ladders, my SCBA, know my run zone, know the building layout, all that kind of stuff.
Cool.
So throwing a lot at you today. This will all be memorialized, we use that word. And you'll have a nice manual come June. And if you have any questions, you can hit me up and we'll cover all of it. We have another 2 Zooms tomorrow, an AM and a PM session. We're never going to catch it all in one session. So I just want to get you guys back in service, and you got final deal.
So we kind of skipped a few slides. I want to be sensitive to your time. The big thing is you all have your operations, right? You all have your training method of how you're going to do your search operations, and you're going to dive big into the hands-on portion, well after I'm gone. The big thing is to just remember that you don't have to get so tuned into I can't move forward if A isn't in place, right? And in the context of VEIS is that I see so many people get so focused in on that thermal imager has to go into the window, and I can't go in the window without looking at the thermal imager. And there's some pretty cool data. It's a small data set in the Firefighter Rescue Survey as far as the success rate with the use of a thermal imager. And it's way less than you would think versus not using a thermal imager, using speed as your weapon and the survivability rate in relation to VES. So getting into the room, if you know the building footprint, hopefully you can isolate that door, improve the environment. Your success rate is going to be higher than waiting for someone to come up with the thermometer. And just some final thoughts, right? So smart people learn from everything and everyone. Average people learn from their experiences, and stupid people already have the answers. 16 years as a BC, I want to make sure that it's okay to be into the job. It's okay to want to learn. It's okay to be a student of your profession. Because if we really tackle and really focus on what our mission of why we all became firefighters is, to save lives, you have to become a lifelong learner, and you have to understand information, and you have to maybe change your operations based off of new information and data sets and technology and how we operate in the fire service. And the Firefighter Rescue Survey has done a tremendous job in that. The UL and FSRI has been a tremendous help. If you get into firefighter rescue stuff, the Project Mayday, again, there's so much information and learning out there that I've had more information in the last 5 years than I've had in my last 29 years based off of the world that we know it today and the information that's out there. So thanks for your time. If you don't know the rescue survey, there's kind of what we all try to put in our slides. Here's a QR code. I'm sure you guys will get the PDF of this. And then if you ever really want to talk to someone or reach out to me, there's my contact information. Thanks for letting me come to your agency and chat. Yeah.
Thank you.